Chapter 1433. Chin Mo and Bo Jiao alighted the car one after another. Their attire wasn't outstanding. But it was because they were too cute. Coupled with that pair of black eyes. Very quickly, some foreigners couldn't help but look over. After all, these two Asian kids were really too cute. Especially that little boy, why was he so charismatic? After Chin Mo alighted, he didn't leave immediately. He didn't let the little tiger run around either. Instead, he lowered his lids and adjusted her down jacket. Then, he helped her adjust her scarf. When the foreigners saw this scene, they felt that it was too loving. Did all Asian kids take care of people like this? Even though the driver, old Wang, had lived here for a long time, he knew his young master well. When he was watching from the side, he wanted to record this scene with his phone and send it to Chairmanen. It was really unbelievable. It was even more unbelievable than young master carrying Miss Jiao in the car. After all, young master had never served anyone before. Chin Mo didn't think much of it. Of course, he had to take good care of his own child. Besides, the weather outside was so cold. This little tiger had always been wearing her skin on her clothes. Either her sleeves weren't rolled up properly or her jacket wasn't zipped up. If he didn't care, who would? After Chin Mo surrounded them, he held the little tiger's hand. Bo Jiao was overjoyed. She walked forward. If she was wearing her little tiger pajamas, she would definitely be wagging her tail. Compared to the domestic ones, overseas amusement parks would have many clowns and magicians dressed in exaggerated clothes. But the children were all the same. They watched as people with all kinds of hair walked past them. Chin Mo brought the little tiger in his direction. Little William was wearing an orange coat and a Christmas wool hat. He had his hands in his pockets and was waiting at the agreed place. In his imagination, Jiao should have appeared alone. Jiao should have appeared alone. But what he didn't expect was, when he glanced up, he saw not only Jiao but also someone he didn't know. And that person's appearance was outrageous. He had black eyes, black hair and that face. Little William was an Asian. Similarly, he understood that Jiao was also an Asian. Logically, Jiao was also an Asian. Shouldn't she prefer Westerners? But when such a handsome man like him swayed in front of her, she did not have any reaction at all. Little William still remembered his first awakening of love. Originally, he had brought his subordinates to confess. He didn't expect Jiao to think that he wanted to fight with her. In the end, he was beaten up. He was such a big guy, yet he was beaten. From then on, little William, who had a hero complex, admired Jiao even more. Therefore, even in the face of such a face, he was not tempted. He was afraid that his Jiao would be tempted. Little William seemed to have predicted something. He glared at Jiao angrily. Sure enough, in her eyes, there was only this little demon from the east. How hateful. Little William sniffled. His nose was still red and he felt a little wronged. But he couldn't show it. Especially in front of this little demon from the east. As little William thought about this, his gaze fell on Chin Mo. At the same time, Chin Mo had also noticed the red-haired Westerner when the little tiger had walked in this direction. But there was one thing that Chin Mo was concerned about. That is. Chapter 1434. In terms of bone structure, Westerners were naturally bigger than Easterners. When they were young, they had an advantage in terms of height. Hence, after realizing this problem, young Master Chin's beautiful peach blossom eyes couldn't help but narrow. Little William noticed this too. Hence, when he lowered his lids to look at the little vixen from the east, he was exceptionally arrogant. But, honestly speaking, little William wasn't young Master Chin's opponent at his level. It could be said that among the children of the same age, there were very few who were smarter than young Master Chin. Chin Mo just swept him a glance and didn't say anything. It was as though he didn't see this person, even though the other party was taller than him. It didn't break the nobility on young Master Chin's face. Just one action from young Master Chin would make little William envious. That action wasn't anything special. He just smiled at the little tiger. Then, naturally, little tiger Bo hugged his waist. Momo, you must be hungry. Let's go in and eat. As she spoke, Bojo introduced him politely. This is little William. Little William, this is Momo, my little prince. She had hugged him. She even used the words my little prince. Little William felt so wrong that he wanted to cry. This wasn't the date he had imagined. However, he couldn't lose just like that. Right now, Jo was bewitched by the other party's beauty. Soon, she would find out that his style was more manly. The other party was shorter than him by a head. He didn't need to be so passive. After making up his mind, little William blew at his red hair. He wanted to show the little vixen how powerful he was. Hence, he reached out his hand and said in a very local manner, "Hey, brother, welcome." Chin Mo saw through his intentions. He smiled and wanted to reach out his hand to give the other party a return gift. Unexpectedly, little tiger Bo, who was standing beside him, was one step faster than him. She stood in front of him and then narrowed her tiger eyes. "William, what are you doing?" Little William's heart trembled. He was afraid that Jo would beat him up again. He exclaimed, "I want to shake hands with Momo." "I know you welcome him. There's no need to shake his hand. You're so strong. What if you hurt Momo?" Little tiger Bo said seriously. Little William, who was despised for being too strong, tried his best to shrink back a little. Never in his wildest dreams would he have imagined that Jo actually liked the weak type. Then what was the point of him practicing hitting the ball every day? None of them could compare to his face. And is he a doll? How could someone get hurt when they held hands? Although he did intend to teach the other party a lesson. But saying it like that was too hurtful, old friend. We are all children, but why is there such a big difference in the way we are treated? Little William's expression was extremely colorful. Chin Mo looked at the little tiger in front of him, and the smile on his face deepened. When little William saw that smile, he almost attacked. After all, he was young and vigorous. Oh, no, he had the spirit of a hero. When this little Eastern demon was laughing just now, he even raised his eyebrows in his direction. That was a blatant provocation. Unfortunately, Jo didn't let him shake hands, and he didn't dare to shake hands. It seemed that he could only find time to teach this little demon from the East a lesson in the future. He would go to school anyway. Chapter 1435. Little William was still thinking about this. He didn't expect the other party to send himself to him. That was because the little vixen from the East said faintly, "It's fine to shake hands." Little William straightened his body instantly. His red hair moved and his entire body emitted an aura that seemed to be saying, "Since you walked right into my trap, I'll teach you a lesson now." Chin Mo was wearing a black down jacket and a pure white scarf that was wrapped around his neck. It was as black as ink. He stretched his hand out. Little William smiled. He thought that he was very devilish and unruly. His hair was still red. The moment his fingers touched, little William used a lot of strength. He was waiting for this person to kneel down and beg for mercy. Wait a minute. This didn't seem right. Little William's eyes widened because of the pain from his fingers. A child couldn't hide his emotions and his face was filled with astonishment. He wanted to use more strength to retaliate. But the other party didn't give him the chance. His right hand was starting to turn numb. However, just as little William was about to bend over from the pain, the person on the other end suddenly released his hand. The person on the other end suddenly let go. Then, he curled his lips and said in a calm voice, "My hand hurts a little." "William, you're really strong." Little William, whose hand was numb, "Excuse me? Me?" He should be the one complaining about his hand hurting. Little William was panting with rage. He wanted to pull the little vixen's collar up. On the other side, Bojo grabbed his wrist. Her big eyes were still black. She asked seriously, William, do you want me to beat you up again? Little William. This wasn't the date he had imagined. He wanted to tell Joe that the little vixen was acting. However, when the vixen turned his head, he seemed to be in pain. Little William was on the verge of tears. Were all the Chinese so good at acting? Joe. Little William's eyes were red. Little Tiger Bojo patted his shoulder and said angrily, William, don't pretend to be weak. Come, let's go in. I'll give you your favorite Big Mac. Little William, why was he pretending to be weak when he cried? He was so angry. Wait a minute, when the little vixen glanced at his shoulder again, why was there a murderous look in his eyes? He, you're not going to pretend anymore? Little William took a deep breath and prepared to fight. He didn't expect the person standing in front of him to look a little lonely from his angle. His eyes were half closed as he shook his hand. If he wasn't the person involved, he would have thought that the other party was really injured. But he knew that the other party wasn't injured. He really wanted to say something. Unfortunately, Joe had already moved. Momo, are you okay? Chin Mo seemed to be in low spirits. He seemed to be in pain. It won't affect the hamburger. Little William wanted to say, don't you have a conscience? It didn't affect him in the first place. It would be strange if it did. Don't think I can't see through your tricks. You're just trying to confuse people. Little William turned his head helplessly. As expected, he saw Joe's distressed face. He watched helplessly as Joe pulled the little vixen's hand up and placed it by her lips. She kissed it and said in a baby tiger's voice, Momo, I'll help you kiss it and it won't hurt anymore. The next time little William shakes hands with you, you just have to look at him. He's so strong, it'll hurt you easily. Chapter 1436. What did he mean by just taking a glance at him? Joe, when you hit me in the past, you had to bow to me first. Why did you disappear after seeing this little vixen? Sob, sob, sob. Little William's sadness had already flowed like a river. But in front of his love rival, he couldn't be weak. At that time, little William didn't understand what kind of opponent he had met. He could only say that the child was too young. He was still looking at Chin Mo from the corner of his eyes. Chin Mo's face was as elegant as before. But when Bojo lowered her eyes, he looked up and looked towards little William. His gaze was so cold that even the big guy, little William, felt a chill down his spine. Where did Joe bring such a person from? He looked like a devil. She seemed to have heard little William's inner cry for help. A clear English voice came from the other side. Chin. Why are you here? Chin. Little Tiger Bo was the first to react. Her round tiger eyes looked towards the direction of the voice. There were 3 little girls wearing puffy skirts and furry jackets standing there. The person who spoke was Angelia. She had blue eyes and golden hair. When the sunlight shone on her, it seemed as though there was a layer of halo. This made little Tiger Bo, who had always been obsessed with beauty, take a few more glances. She turned her head and said, Momo, is this your new friend? She looks so pretty. Chin Mo knew a certain someone's preferences. When she saw someone beautiful, her pair of tiger eyes would definitely light up. But a certain someone's preferences. It was time to change it. Chin Mo turned his body and discreetly let a certain little tiger stay behind him. At this moment, Angelia and the other 2 little girls walked over. They were still holding the ice cream cone that they had just bought. Chin, are you here to play too? When Angelia ate the ice cream, her blue eyes were very attractive. However, after studying it, little Tiger Bo realized that it wasn't as pretty as her little princess. Her little princess's eyes looked black, but under the sunlight, one could see that they were glowing with amber. There was no comparison at all. Chin Mo didn't know what Bojo was thinking about. He just looked at the little tiger in front of him. Her tiger eyes kept moving around other people's bodies. He frowned slightly. Then, he reached out and put on the hood of the little tiger jacket. He looked up at Angelia and said in a calm voice, "Okay." After the banquet. Angelia was used to William's lack of words. She turned her head and said in surprise, "William, you know Cheen. When we were in school, didn't you say that you didn't know there were Asians moving in?" When William heard this, the expression on his face became even more indescribable. After all, he had just found out that this demon was the Asian who had just moved here, the one who called himself the Little Prince. He really didn't want to talk anymore, but he had to force himself to say, "I'm trying to be mysterious." "I see." Angelia wasn't sure what had happened, but it didn't affect her happiness when she saw Cheen Mo. Even her voice was cheerful. "Cheen, are you going to the amusement park? It's fun inside." "No, thank you." When Cheen Mo said this, he didn't look at Angelia. Instead, he looked to the side and pressed down the little tiger's paw that wanted to be naughty. Chapter 1437. She shouldn't be able to see him. Besides him, who else did she want to see? Should he acknowledge another little princess? When Cheen Mo thought of this, he pressed down on her wrist again so that she wouldn't have to pat someone's shoulder. "How about this? You won't be able to see him." Bojo stretched her hand forward as though she was measuring the distance. Cheen Mo held her hand. "I'll hold your hand. Don't shake the hat. The wind is strong and it will blow on your face." "Okay." Little Tiger Bo thought that her little princess was really considerate. She could even think of such a thing. William, who had seen everything from start to finish and knew what Cheen Mo was like, felt a surge of emotion surging through his heart. This guy did it on purpose. What did he treat Jo as? Was she his possession? No. He had to warn this devil. But he couldn't do it in front of Jo. The big guy, William, wasn't too stupid. Jo was definitely addicted to the beauty and wouldn't be able to see the truth clearly. He had to warn her behind her back. If he wanted to do so, he needed a good place. Hence, William took the initiative and said, "Hey, Angelia, there are many people at the amusement park now. Cheen and I don't want to go now. Why don't you come to the shop with us to eat something?" "That's great." When Angelia said these words, her gaze hadn't left the little figure with the hat. Was she from the East too? She must be Cheen's family. Otherwise, with Cheen's personality, he wouldn't be so friendly to anyone. They were all kids, so they couldn't hide their expressions and words. "Cheen, is this your sister?" "No." He didn't seem to be bothered to say another word, but he was so polite that no one could find any problems with his etiquette. This was Cheen Mo. Angelia was a little depressed. After all, she was still a kid. Her excitement just now was gone. But she still wanted to eat with Cheen Mo. Hence, the alliance of eating burgers became 6 from 3. Cheen Mo was the first to enter. But Bojo was the one who ordered the food. Little Tiger Bo was very persistent about this. After all, she hadn't forgotten that she wanted to show off her wealth this time. In this aspect, Cheen Mo didn't have any intention to compete. After today's incident, he understood something. No wonder Uncle Bo was like that at home. Sometimes, appearing weak wasn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, apart from discovering that a certain someone was a genius, Cheen Mo also realized that the little tiger he was raising had some misconceptions about his identity. Little Tiger Bo didn't think that she had made a mistake. After all, when she grew up, she would become a CEO just like her mother. It had to be said. Little Tiger Bo was quite cool when she was on her own. She was queuing up to order food. Her nose bridge was exquisite and straight. Her eyelashes were long and black. Many people were looking at her, but she didn't seem to notice. Cheen Mo lifted the corner of his lips when he saw this. A certain little tiger always felt that this was beautiful and that was beautiful. He might as well go home and look at himself in the mirror. None of these people could compare to her. Even children can't be absolutely quiet while waiting for their meals. Cheen Mo got up and went to the washroom. If William followed them, he would not attract any attention. He was right. They had to take advantage of this opportunity to act. Qin Mo had long noticed the person behind him, but he continued to wash his hands leisurely. After washing his hands, Qin Mo turned to leave. Chapter 1438. Qin Mo threw the tissue he used to wipe his hands into the bin. His face was cold and he didn't seem to care about the big guy, Little William. This infuriated Little William. "Aren't you afraid that I'll tell Joe how you acted just now? Seriously, did this little demon from the East have to force him to use his big move to know how powerful he was?" Little William snorted. Qin Mo turned his body and his gaze turned cold. He was obviously shorter than him. But Little William actually felt that this person was scarier than his father. Because of what he said. "If you say anything, I'll break your legs." Little William. This was different from what he had imagined. Shouldn't this little demon be scared to death? Why was his aura so strong? Who exactly was threatening who? "I'll go and tell her." The big guy straightened his back to show off his height. Little did he know that this was what Qin Mo disliked the most. His little tiger's friend was actually taller than him. "You can go and tell her." Qin Mo scoffed. The devilish smile that Little William saw appeared on his face again. "But, do you think Joe will believe you?" The big guy, Little William, had little experience. Such a small kid couldn't imagine that there was such a shameless person in the world. You, Qin Mo interrupted him. "I have something to tell you too. You're a boy and she's a girl. In China, there's a saying that goes, men and women shouldn't touch each other. In the future, don't do intimate actions to her." Little William wasn't convinced. "You even held her hand just now." Qin Mo glanced at him slowly. "Can I be the same as you?" Little William. "How are they different?" No, he had to expose this little demon from the East. However, very quickly, Little William realized that he was daydreaming. The main reason was Joe. "Momo, this is really delicious. It's just a little spicy but it's okay. Try it and I'll feed you a mouthful of Coke. It can neutralize the spiciness." Little William, Joe, wake up. No matter how good-looking that little demon from the East was, he was still a boy. Did he need you to feed him Coke? Most importantly, why did you have to kiss his face when you were feeding him? This wasn't right. Didn't you say that men and women shouldn't touch each other in China? Qin Mo seemed to have seen through Little William's thoughts. At first, he lowered his lids and drank his cola. When the little tiger kissed him, he turned his head. The place that was kissed was still a little hot, but he still swept a glance in Little William's direction. His entire body was filled with a cold aura. It seemed to be saying, "I'm very respectful of Chinese etiquette, but I can't stop Joe from kissing me." Little William didn't want to talk anymore. He bit the ox burger in his hand. The little tiger was different. She was very happy, especially when she fed the little princess with the cola in her hands. The little princess's cold look was so cute that she couldn't help but kiss him. Right now, he was just practicing how to raise them. When the little princess really became hers, she would be able to feed the little princess every day. Qin Mo looked at the person in front of him who had big eyes and was holding a can of Coke with both hands for him to drink. I don't know what this guy is thinking, he doesn't even want to eat. He couldn't bear to watch any longer, so he took a French fry, dipped it in ketchup, and fed it to the silly little tiger. Bo Jiu, on the other hand, was eating one by one, looking like she was enjoying herself. If little Tiger Bo was considered a beginner when it came to feeding people, then young Master Qin's feeding would be completely different. He took care of everything slowly. When the little tiger stained the corner of her mouth while eating the hamburger, he would even pick up a napkin and help her wipe it off. Angelia, who was sitting at the side, couldn't move her eyes away. She waited until Qin Mo stood up and went to get something else. He couldn't help but ask Bojo, "Hey, what exactly is your relationship?" Relationship? Bojo smiled. Her eyes were big and a little mischievous. Momo is going to marry me in the future. Let's practice first. Marry you? William, who was listening on the side, couldn't sit still anymore. Joe, you don't know how that little demon spoke to me. If you knew, you, bang. Bojo placed the cola down and grabbed little William's collar with one hand. Are you looking for a beating? If you say anything bad about my Momo again, I'll pack you up and feed you to the tigers. No, it's him. Little William was still struggling. Chin Mo had already returned. He was holding a new bag of fries. He leaned forward calmly and held the little tiger's hand. Don't fight. Bojo's eyes turned round and she explained, Momo, I'm usually very gentle. Today is an exception. Little William. Gentle? You? It's a miracle that you didn't hit me today. Where is your gentleness? Even his Joe knew how to lie. It was really painful. Angelia didn't have many thoughts in her mind. She tilted her head and blurted out, Chin, is she the child betrothed that Grandpa arranged for you? You Chinese people have an ancient way of getting married. Oh my God, you have to take care of a wife from a young age? That's not fun at all. Chin Mo raised his eyebrows when he heard this. Child betrothal? She just said that you will marry her when you grow up. Did she use the wrong grammar? Angelia felt that this was weird. Chin Mo glanced at the little tiger who had been naughty just now. Her cheeks were puffed up and she looked angry. He rolled up Bojo's sleeves and said, she did use the wrong grammar. Angelia smiled. She knew that little prince wouldn't agree to such an ancient method. Chin Mo looked up. She should be the one marrying me, not the other way around. All the children, Angelia paused. It was too obvious. William was so angry that he wanted to scratch the table. But there was one thing. Ever since that day, everyone knew that the new little prince from the east had a young wife who was betrothed to him. But for some reason, that young wife hadn't entered school yet. William had said that she had been living here for a short period of time. The news reached Grandpa Anne's ears through Angelia's grandfather. As the person who had betrothed his grandson, he almost didn't drink his tea. Child betrothal? My grandson said that? And, you're too dishonest. Even now, you're still not telling the truth. Old Master An thought to himself, brother, am I not telling the truth? As a grandfather, I don't even know that I have a little granddaughter-in-law. Hence, during the dinner that day. Chapter 1439. Chin Mo had expected his grandfather to ask him about this. He put down the knife and fork in his hand and said, I'm not a little wife but I'll take care of little Bojo in the future. Grandfather, you can go to the Bo family and ask her to come over to eat when she has no food. Their house is always empty. MMH? Old Master An couldn't help but laugh when he heard this. He was going to take care of someone else's child but he still didn't admit it. He understood his grandson. He probably didn't have that kind of relationship. Also, he was just a little old. It was probably because he liked the little tiger too much. The love between family members. At that time, Old Master An wasn't sure. When young Master Chin said he was taking care of her, he was really taking care of her. Just like that, the two little people naturally piled up into a pile. Little Tiger Bo liked to play games. Every time she came to the An family, she would wear a set of little tiger pajamas and climb around. Occasionally, an owl would land on the treetops. Little Tiger Bo looked at little Princess Chin who was still playing chess with herself. She turned her round eyes and ran downstairs. She climbed up the wall. The young golden-haired butler stood below and said softly in English, Miss Jo, hurry up and come down. It's too dangerous. Bojo didn't listen. The golden-haired butler had no choice but to use his trump card. Young master is here. Little Tiger Bo's ears perked up. She looked down and when she saw that there was no one, she smiled. Brother Butler, you are being mischievous again. Where is the little princess? The golden-haired butler. Who was the mischievous one? Bojo was still playing around. She didn't know that someone had seen the scene. She sighed softly and reached out to pinch her eyebrows. Helplessness appeared on her cold face. Then she walked to the bottom of the tree and stood tall. Come down. Little Tiger Bo's back stiffened. She reached out to scratch her face and looked at the owner of the voice. A month had passed. She didn't know if it was because of the milk Chin Mo drank. At this moment, he was actually as tall as Bojo. When he stood there, his aura was much stronger. Momo, there is an owl here. I came up because it is too bored staying on the tree. I want to bring it to the ground to play with it. The golden-haired butler listened at the side and looked up at the sky. To think that such an excuse could be used. The owl expressed that it was not going to take the blame. Chin Mo was already used to the little tiger's naughtiness. He stretched out his hands and repeated with a cold expression, come down. Acting cute didn't work. Little Tiger Bo hugged the tree and slid down. Chin Mo hugged her. They were the same age, but when he hugged Bojo, he seemed like a big brother. It was probably due to his aura. The butler wanted to help, but he gave him a look. A young master who raised a child was really afraid of his words. Chin Mo removed the leaf from the little tiger's head, his voice calm. Didn't I tell you not to climb trees and walls all the time? I can't control it, Bojo replied honestly. Chin Mo paused, not saying a word. The blonde butler really wanted to know what his young master was thinking. If there was anyone who could make the young master feel helpless, it would be the 9th young mistress. Coincidentally, Miss Jo was growing her teeth these days, so half of her face was puffed up. Their young master would bring her over from the Bo family every day and watch her brush her teeth and wash her face. The blonde butler just wanted to say that even his father hadn't been so attentive when he was raising him. Was this the cultural difference between the Chinese and the West? Even raising a child was different? Very soon, when the young blonde butler got to know the other Eastern families, he understood a principle. He was definitely the only one who raised a child like his young master. For example, if he was an ordinary child, he definitely wouldn't have such a conversation. Chin Mo, little Bojo. Bojo, MMH? Chin Mo, open your mouth. Bojo, Momo, my teeth don't hurt as much anymore. Can I not take the medicine? Chin Mo, no. Bojo, can I kiss you after I take the medicine? Chin Mo, MH, their young master used his looks to coax her every day. From the beginning, little Bojo, if you kiss me again, I'll throw you out through the window. Until now, he had tacitly agreed to Miss Jo doing anything intimate with him. When there was no one at the Bo family's side, Miss Jo would still stay over. Every time, young master would take care of her. As one of the parties involved, little Tiger Bo didn't agree with this point. She was obviously the one taking care of Momo. Momo was afraid of the dark and didn't like thunder. She could sleep beside him and hug him. She could also show off her strength as a boyfriend. Regarding this point, little William couldn't help but say. After hearing this, little William couldn't help but say, Joe, think carefully. This time, my daddy is filming in a tropical rainforest. Are you really not going? How could that little demon from the east be afraid of the dark? Jill must have been deceived by him again. Tropical rainforest? Little Tiger Bo lowered her head and pulled her little keyboard. All right, I'll go on the same day and come back on the same day. Little William immediately said, it's in the suburbs. I'll be back in 4 hours. It was supposed to be 4 hours. But once they started filming, time was out of their control. As usual, Chin Mo appeared at the Bo family's house at 4 in the afternoon. He brought little Bojo, who had to complete missions every day, home for dinner. Unexpectedly, he wasn't there. The person who was there was Mr. Bo. He seemed to be preparing to go out. He wore a black hooded jacket and a pair of leather gloves. It didn't match his usual image of a man who lived off a woman. Uncle Bo, it seemed that no matter what Mr. Bo looked like, Chin Mo would always be able to maintain his manners. When Mr. Bo saw Chin Mo outside the door, he held the door frame with one hand and smiled. No matter how he looked at it, he looked evil. Are you here to fetch Jo? She isn't here today. She went out to play with little William. Are you angry? Chin Mo paused. His voice was calm. No. Oh. Mr. Bo smiled lightly and raised his eyebrows. Then, I'll let Jo play outside for a while longer. Chin Mo replied casually. He wore a little scarf and walked back to the villa. He wanted to finish playing checkers just now. But when he saw the little keyboard on the sofa, he felt a wave of frustration. When it was almost 6 o'clock, the In family started eating on time. Grandpa happened to be able to stay at home for a meal today. When he saw that the seat beside his grandson was empty, he asked curiously, "Where's Jo?" The young golden-haired butler tried his best to signal Grandpa with his eyes. Grandpa was still guessing the reason. His grandson, who was sitting opposite him, said, "She went out to play with someone else." Grandpa felt that he didn't see wrongly. His grandson's eyes were cold when he said this. He didn't know if it was because one person was missing. Even though there was a table full of dishes, the atmosphere at the dining table didn't lighten up. Chapter 1440. 7 o'clock. Usually, at this hour, Chin Mo would bring Bojo out for a walk. Raising a little tiger would definitely be followed by begging. But today, Chin Mo didn't go out. Instead, he sat in the study room with a book in his hands. After flipping a few pages, he looked up and glanced at the clock hanging on the wall. 8 o'clock. If a certain someone came back at 8 o'clock, he wouldn't pursue the fact that she didn't listen to him. Chin Mo had never felt that time was so long. 7 o'clock, 7:30. 8 o'clock, 8:30. He overturned the previous settings and changed his mind. He would wait for the little tiger to come back at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. The street lights outside the window were lit up. The Christmas tree was beautiful as usual. But Chin Mo wasn't in the mood to admire it. He took the book and went upstairs. The young butler looked at the cold little face and was shocked. He hurriedly took out his phone and read a few pages of a fantasy cultivation novel. It started to rain outside. The lights in the Bo family's house were still dark. Bojo didn't know that her little princess was angry because of this. When she returned home, she saw that the lights weren't turned on. She automatically walked towards the In family's house. She didn't climb over the wall because there were too many obstacles outside. She carried the mushrooms she had dug in the jungle and walked through the main door. When he saw Bojo, the young butler hurriedly asked her to go upstairs. When Chin Mo heard the sound, he was lying on the bed. He wasn't asleep, but his little face was obviously much colder than usual. Bojo turned and looked at the young butler. Her tiger eyes blinked. The young butler signaled for her to go over. Actually, he didn't need to signal for Bojo to go over. She even brought back the mushrooms she had plucked. "Momo, I brought you a present." No one replied. Bojo scratched her face and took a step forward. She sat by the bed for a while and then ran into the bathroom. When she came out again, she had changed into her little tiger pajamas. Then she poured a glass of milk and tiptoed to take the Arabian Nights book from the bookshelf. She placed it beside Chin Mo's hand. Her tiger eyes were round and black. She had always been straightforward. "Momo, are you angry?" Chin Mo didn't have any intention to care about this person. After all, a certain little tiger never listened to him. Bojo wagged her tiger tail and leaned forward, planting a kiss on his face. How was he supposed to ignore her? Chin Mo tilted his head, his voice still calm. "Is the tropical rainforest good?" How did Momo know where she went? Little Tiger Bo was puzzled for a moment. Then she said, "It's fun, but Momo isn't here." When Chin Mo heard this, the frustration in his heart subsided a little. He said nonchalantly, "Next time you go out, tell me in advance. I got the kitchen to make bean buns for you." They were all wasted. When little Tiger Bo heard this, she felt guilty and lowered her head. Chin Mo continued, "It's not that I'm not letting you play, but don't go so far next time. Alright, go to sleep." It had to be said that shrewdness was something that was definitely cultivated from a young age. Young Master Chin now knew how to support a certain someone. He could retreat in order to advance. Little Tiger Bo had already started to reflect on herself. When she glanced up, she saw Chin Mo's lonely back view. One of them wrapped his arms around her waist and swore seriously, "In the future, I will bring Momo wherever I go." Chin Mo paused for a moment before replying. Little Tiger Bo saw that he wasn't in a good mood and felt even more guilty. Unbeknownst to her, the coldness in Chin Mo's eyes had dissipated. He sat up on the bed with something else in his eyes. Little Tiger Bo thought he was still angry with her and followed behind him. After taking a few steps, she realized that he had opened the drawer and pulled out a bag of potato chips that he had prepared for her. "Momo, don't you not eat these things?" At this moment, Chin Mo spoke in a calm voice. "I was worried that you would be hungry when you weren't around, so I didn't eat dinner." While he was saying these words, the young butler happened to come in with a plate of fruits. Every night, young master would feed Miss Gio 2 mouthfuls of fruit because Miss Gio loved to eat meat. In young master's words, he was afraid that the child's vitamin intake could not keep up, so he simply used fruits to supplement. Coincidentally, he heard this sentence and thought to himself, "Young master, you're going against your heart by saying this." Miss Gio went out with Director William. How could she be hungry? You obviously didn't have an appetite because Miss Gio went to play with other people and didn't play with you. However, as a qualified butler, even though he was young, he knew that he wouldn't say such things out loud. However, little Tiger Bo was born with a strong sense of empathy. Her round eyes looked out of the window. It was raining outside. When she came back just now, there was even thunder. These were the things that the little princess hated the most. Little Tiger Bo knew that the family ate their meals on time. The little princess didn't even eat dinner because of her. Yet, she played outside for the entire day. Little Tiger Bo felt completely guilty. She stretched out her 2 little paws and hugged Chin Mo from behind. Her tail was still wagging. "Momo, I was wrong." Seeing this, Chin Mo felt that it was about time and directly said what was on his mind. "Little Bojo, if you want to go out and play with other people, don't play with me anymore, understand?" "I understand. I will be obedient in the future." Little Tiger Bo wagged her tail again and said very seriously. Chin Mo glanced over and curled her hair with his fingers. "I will forgive you this time." Little Tiger Bo nodded. In order to show that she was very obedient, she didn't need Chin Mo to rush her. She took a shower in advance and came out smelling good. She lay at the side and listened to Chin Mo read her a bedtime story with her big tiger eyes. It had to be said. Young Master Chin's method was very effective. Because the next day, when little William carried the basketball over again, little Tiger Bo rejected him decisively. Little Tiger Bo rejected him decisively. "I'm not going." Little William's little face was originally red. He was filled with anticipation for today's date on the basketball court. After all, he had already done his research on the little demon from the east. The other party didn't like this kind of sweaty exercise. Hence, it was impossible for him to go out with Joe. Then, he would be able to be alone with Joe again. He didn't expect this. Didn't we agree? Little William's red hair drooped. Bojo hugged the little keyboard in her hands and said seriously, "Yesterday, I left Momo at home alone. He didn't even eat. Also, he is afraid of the dark. I have to accompany him." Afraid of the dark? That little demon from the east? How was that possible? No way. He had to expose him today. Joe, Chin wouldn't be afraid. just as little William was about to go all out. The person he wanted to expose appeared. He was wearing a small black suit and his hair was styled. He looked like a real little prince. He glanced at little William. There was a sense of oppression amidst his nobility. Little William subconsciously gulped a few times and swallowed his words back. That wasn't right. What was he afraid of? Even if this little demon had grown taller, he still wasn't as strong as him. He didn't need to be afraid at all. But he didn't know why. When little William saw Chin Mo, he would remember the day at the burger shop. The way this little demon had looked behind him. It made people want to run away after seeing him. Thinking about it carefully, only Gio was so close to him. Although Angelia and the others called this little demon Prince, it could be seen that they were a little afraid when they faced this little demon. Of course, Chin Mo noticed the red-haired William's gaze. Grandpa said that he had to be more polite to foreigners. This would show the thousands of years of etiquette in China. Indeed, Chin Mo wasn't impolite to others. But there was one thing. A certain red-haired man always wanted to abduct the little tiger he was raising when he wasn't around. This debt had to be settled. Little William looked at that person and narrowed his eyes. He said calmly, "What can I do?" Afraid of the dark. Little William braced himself. Since he was going to die anyway, he might as well finish his sentence. You're already so old and you're still a boy. Do you think it's possible for you to be afraid of the dark? It was a pity that little William had underestimated young Master Chin's shamelessness. Everyone has fear. When Chin Mo said this, he seemed a little lonely. As a boy, I don't want to be afraid of the dark. I'll be laughed at. But I have no choice. Little William. Wait a minute, how could there be such a thing? The young butler, who had been listening to the entire process, raised his head and looked at the ceiling. He would never tell anyone that his young master dared to go to the basement alone at night. Every time he watched a horror movie, he treated it as pseudoscience. He was even more disdainful of ghosts and demons than adults. So, he was definitely pretending to be afraid of the dark. But he was acting so shamelessly. Probably only his young master could do that. After all, it was effective. Because he had heard Miss Jo's words. Momo, don't be afraid. I'll accompany you in the future. William probably wants to go out and play with you. He has many children accompanying him. Moreover, he's so strong. He's not afraid at all. Little William felt his heart hurt. Just like that. From then on, little Tiger Bo never went out alone with anyone again. It was because of Chin Mo. Of course, it was also because of her toothache. Speaking of this, little Tiger Bo's appetite decreased because of her toothache. Chin Mo was really anxious. Every day, he would coax her to eat during dinner. In the morning, when she woke up to brush her teeth, he would ask little Tiger Bo to stand beside him and he would brush her teeth for her. Thus, in these 10 days, Li Tianlan's eyes lit up. Grandpa would always see the scene of his grandson raising a child in the morning. The young golden-haired butler didn't mention the difference in education between China and China anymore. He basically understood that his young master was raising Miss Jo like a porcelain doll. It wasn't just the details of life. There was also the time when his young master was reading. Miss Jo would play with her little keyboard at the side. How good were these two children? It could be explained with one point. In the past, other than a bed, a bookshelf, and a wardrobe, nothing else could be found in his young master's room. Ever since he met Miss Jo. Snacks, a couch, a small toolbox, and 2 laptops. In his young master's words, these were all Miss Jo's toys. But the young butler couldn't understand after thinking for a long time. How did a toolbox become a toy? Of course, there were times when it was quiet. 10 in the morning. The 2 children would be in the study room. Every time it was at this time, time would always pass very slowly. Chin Mo wore a pure white sweater. One of his hands was pressed against the rice paper on the wooden table. His other hand was separated by little Tiger Beau's hand. He held a brush and taught someone how to read, stroke by stroke. The sunlight shone in and shone on the two children's bodies. The young butler watched from the side. His eyes were filled with amazement. He always knew that his young master was good-looking. But he was such a gentle young master. This was probably the only time he would see it. Rather than saying that his young master looked like a prince with British blood, it would be better to say that he looked like a young master from an ancient family. His every move was like a splash of ink. It was naturally noble. If it was just him, people might not be unable to shift their gazes away. However, little Tiger Beau was standing in front of him. They were children of the same age. The taller one was teaching the shorter one how to write. Little Tiger Beau's tail was wagging. The tip of her nose was stained with ink. It seemed to have been purposely dotted there. She was just short of drawing 3 whiskers. She looked very serious, as though she was completing a big task. He probably found it interesting to see her like this. His young master would always turn his gaze subconsciously. The corners of his lips would curl up slightly. At that moment, the young golden-haired butler thought of a poem he had learned in the vast Eastern literature. That's right. Ancient fantasy cultivation. Wastrel's counterattack against ancient web novels. This was the vast Eastern literature he thought of. There was a line in the poem that went like this. My husband came riding a bamboo horse, circling the bed to play with green plums. This was probably the purest form of emotion. But compared to normal childhood sweethearts, there was a difference between this pair. It could be said that the knowledge and part of Bojio's lifestyle habits were learned from Chinemo. He was the one who taught her the first word she wrote. He was also the one who taught her the first ancient poem she memorized. He was even the first one to tell her a bedtime story. He coaxed her to sleep, ate her, and drank her medicine. However, Bojio was still mischievous. After all, writing calligraphy was just a way for her to admire the little princess's beauty from a close distance. Momo, your eyelashes are so long. They are even longer than mine. This was a certain someone who couldn't control herself after writing these 4 words. Her hand had already reached over and touched the cold and handsome little face in front of her. Chin-mo paused. He knew that he couldn't change her habit of touching him. He didn't force her. He wrapped a scarf around her neck and brought the little tiger out of the door. He had to take a breather at an appropriate time. It was brought forward today. After all, a certain someone had been very obedient for the past half a month. But very quickly, this breather was interrupted. Chapter 1441. After seeing the unreliable behavior of a certain adult, Chin-mo calmly brought little Tiger Beau towards him. Chin-mo pulled little Tiger Beau towards him without a change in expression. Then, he reached out and caressed her head. Mr. Beau was amused by this scene. This little rascal from the Chin family really wanted to raise a child for him? Mr. Beau raised his eyebrows slightly. Then he bent down and carried his Lord Jiu up. All right, I'm afraid you and your little princess will have to meet again in the afternoon. Follow me out. Where are we going? Little Tiger Beau asked. Then, she added, Dad, you appeared at the wrong time. Mr. Beau smiled and placed her on the motorcycle. I'm really sorry. But Lord Jiu, did you forget what day of the week it is today? Little Tiger Beau tilted her head. Friday. There would always be some messy programs in her father's university. Last time, it was a debate. This time, she didn't know what it was. But her father would occasionally participate in it so that her mother would appear in school to cheer for him. Little Tiger Beau knew why her father came to find her. He wanted her to act cute. But she couldn't bear to leave her Momo. Chin-mo saw that the little tiger on the motorcycle kept looking at him. Also, he thought that she was just taking a walk. She didn't even wear a hat. The more he looked at her, the deeper his frown became. He took the scarf off his neck and wrapped it around little Tiger Beau like a brother. His voice was still calm. Be obedient when you go out with Uncle Bo. Don't be naughty all the time. Don't take off your scarf, understand? MMH. Little Tiger Bo nodded heavily. Chin Mo turned and placed the mint candy in his hand into Little Tiger Bo's pocket. Then he looked up and said to a certain adult, Uncle Bo, you have to watch over her. She likes to eat candies but her teeth haven't fully recovered. She can't eat too much. This is today's amount. Don't buy more for her. Uncle Bo bought too much the last time. After she finished eating, she didn't sleep much. The experienced big kid, Mr. Bo, smiled when he heard this. Was this little brat reminding him? After all, he was indeed weak in raising Lord Joe. But if the little brat from the Chin family said this, he should be the one to say it. Lord Joe belonged to his family. If I don't go to the candy store this time, I won't have the chance to buy it for her. Don't worry. As Mr. Bo spoke, he took a step forward and rode on the bike. He leaned against the bike and buckled his helmet. He didn't try to hide his handsomeness anymore. When the corners of his clothes fluttered in the wind, there was a child sitting behind the bike. This could be said to be very pleasing to the eye. Chin Mo watched as the motorcycle moved further and further away. When he couldn't see it anymore, he retracted his gaze. When the young butler heard that Mr. Bo had taken Miss Jo away, he had a premonition that his young master's appetite wouldn't be so good today. As expected, they didn't even let the kitchen prepare dessert. This time, it wasn't because he was in a bad mood. However, since a certain someone wasn't around, it was meaningless for him to eat these things alone. Fortunately, Grandpa said that there would be a gathering in a while and wanted to take him out. Chin Mo finally found something to do. Whenever he attended a business gathering with Grandpa, Chin Mo would dress like a little prince. This was something that little William couldn't compare to. Hence, even if the two of them met, little William could only be angry in his heart and didn't dare to say anything. After all, it was too deceptive. Moreover, Jill had specially reminded him that if he met her little princess at the gathering, he should protect him well. After all, her little princess was too good-looking. She was afraid that he would be in danger. When little William heard this, he had a lot of thoughts in his mind. In the end, there was only one sentence left. His daddy was lying to him. Was he saying that girls would like him because he was tall and strong? Wrong. As long as he was good-looking, nothing else was important, okay? In addition, this good-looking person was always acting. He didn't give anyone a way out. All the children who came for the gathering were bewitched by him. This should be the reason why the little vixen came here. It was simply too infuriating. Was he not going to make any friends today? Little William looked at the cold back view that was surrounded by people. When other children spoke, he would occasionally reply with one or two sentences. He really looked like an iceberg. He must have known that this style was popular now, so he deliberately acted like this. When he was in front of Joe, he wasn't like this at all. He wasn't so difficult to get close to. Little William was really wrong about this matter. The real Chin Mo was like this. He was polite and cold to everyone. Only a certain little tiger. It would make him patiently coax her, and it would make him feel like a peer, happy and unhappy at the same time. However, she was too young. At that time, they didn't understand what kind of feelings they had. The time for the gathering continued to extend. It lasted until 11 p.m. before it was finally over. At the start, Chin Mo didn't care. After all, it wasn't considered late in the country. He was 5 or 6 years old. At this time, he was already sleepy. When he alighted from the car, Chin Mo's black eyes were still a little dazed. When he saw the little tiger sitting in front of his house, he instantly woke up. Instinctively, he opened his jacket and wrapped the little tiger in it. "Why are you here?" "I'm waiting for Momo." Little Tiger Bo tapped her chin on his shoulder. When she saw him, even her round tiger eyes started to stare blankly. Her voice became even more sleepy. "I thought Momo would come back in a while. I didn't expect him to take so long." I didn't expect him to. Gradually, little Tiger Bo closed her eyes. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that she fell asleep in seconds. Soon, Chin Mo couldn't hear the person in his arms talking anymore. He could only hear her soft breathing. Chin Mo reached out and touched the person's ear. It was cold. He carried the person in his arms. As the person was about the same size as him, Chin Mo couldn't help but sway slightly when he walked. However, when the driver wanted to reach out, he avoided him. The young butler wasn't around. Old Masterin was a little surprised to see such a remorseful expression on his grandson's face. From that day onwards, no matter what happened, Chin Mo would always come back before 9 p.m. It was the same even if he attended a business gathering. After all, he had a child to take care of. Right now, the little tiger in his arms was cold. It must be especially cold when she sat outside. The next day, Chin Mo found an extra butler. This butler was in charge of opening the door for the little tiger. Chin Mo even made an extra key and placed it in little Tiger Bo's pocket. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that the two children were inseparable. Because this wasn't enough. Sometimes, when Chin Mo went out, he would bring the little tiger with him. He was like a big brother taking care of the child the entire time. Every time people saw these two, they would compare their grandchildren with each other. The more they compared, the more obvious the difference was. From then on, even Angelia and the group of little girls understood that they didn't have a chance. Almost everyone in the business circle knew that the heir of the in-group and the child who was betrothed when they were young were so close that Chin Mo rolled up the child's sleeves when he ate. Needless to say, when the child's shoelaces were untied, Chin Mo would even squat down and tie the child's shoelaces. Then, he would rub the little tiger's head. Seeing this scene, many couples who already had a boy wanted a little girl. The scene of a big brother doting on the child was too heartwarming. It was just a few things outsiders didn't know. For example, during the 2 days before the new year, Chin Mo received a call from his father. The content was the same. There were many missions in the military, so he might not be able to go home to celebrate the new year with him. The biggest festival in China was the New Year. This was a day for family reunions. However, Chin Mo had never enjoyed such a reunion. In the military courtyard, it was his grandfather who accompanied him for the new year. After his grandfather retired, it was obvious that his father had to take the lead. As for his mother, her career was getting further and further away and she couldn't find time. Logically speaking, Chin Mo was used to it. However, this year, he really wanted to introduce the little tiger he raised to his family. Moreover, he hadn't seen his parents for a long time. He felt so disappointed. After all, his age was there. No matter how mature he was still a child. Chin Mo wasn't someone who would show his emotions. Hence, Grandpa didn't notice anything. Coincidentally, it was the end of the year and something happened at the branch company that he needed to deal with. He hurriedly got into the car and reminded the servants to take good care of his grandson. However, Grandpa didn't understand that Chin Mo didn't need to be taken care of. He needed company. Fortunately, with the butler around, he would be able to know his grandson's movements. He heard that his grandson hadn't come down ever since he left. Grandpa anxiously called the Bo family. Little Tiger Bo picked up the phone. "Hello, Grandpa." Grandpa softened his tone. "It's me, Joe. Grandpa is on a business trip and isn't home today. There's no one at home. After you're done, can you help me visit your brother Mo? I'll go over now." When little Tiger Bo heard that her little princess was the only one left in the In family, she didn't even bother with her mission. She hugged her little keyboard and put on her down jacket. Then, she walked over. She had already decided to let Momo have a taste of her cooking. Momo might even agree to let her raise him. That would be great. With that thought in mind, Bojo pushed open the door to the second floor. Chin Mo thought it was the butler. He laid on the bed and pulled the blanket up. He covered his face and said calmly, "Get out." Bo Jiao heard those two words. There wasn't any warmth in her. She placed the little keyboard down and pounced on the bed. She hugged the bulging figure through the blanket. "Momo, it's me." Qin Mo paused. He didn't expect the little tiger to come in. After all, she should still be doing her mission at this time. Also, he could tell that Mr. Bo had been assigning more tasks to her recently. Chapter 1442. Qin Mo had just lifted his lids. The little tiger's hand was already pressed on his forehead. Then, she frowned heavily. She stopped wagging her tail and ran downstairs. She carried a small medicine box and ran back. She was probably too naughty. Compared to Qin Mo, the little tiger always had injuries of various sizes on her body. Of course, there weren't any heavy injuries. Usually, it was because she was climbing a wall and got scratched on her face and hands. Sometimes, she would have a toothache and a bloated stomach. These were problems that children often encountered. Little Tiger Bo was so familiar with the family's medicine box because every time she was sick or injured, Qin Mo would be the one feeding her medicine. At first, Qin Mo didn't know what the little tiger was going to do. He felt a little dizzy. He swayed and wanted to stand up to look for her. But when he saw the little tiger carrying the medicine box, his fingers paused. Bo Jiao took the medicine box on the first trip. On the second trip, she carried a big pot of hot water. She lowered her head and poured the cold medicine into Qin Mo's mouth seriously. Then, she broke a few pieces of medicine and looked at Qin Mo with her dark eyes. She wanted him to eat medicine. This was the first time. He was being taken care of. Qin Mo watched as the little tiger ran up and down. In the end, she took a book and flipped a few pages before saying, "Momo, I don't know how to tell bedtime stories. Why don't I make one for you?" MMH? Qin Mo felt that it was rare to see someone not being naughty. She even knew how to tell him a bedtime story. He couldn't help but smile. Seeing this, little Tiger Bo lowered her eyes and kissed him on the cheek. Qin Mo didn't guard himself. He didn't know if it was because of the cold or something else, but the back of his ears turned red. When he thought about it, it was a certain little tiger who began to make up a story. The Bo family was familiar with Buddhism and the Bible. These were two different beliefs. But it wasn't hard to tell from the little tiger's words. Hence, she told him a story. A long time ago, there was a person who cultivated the demonic path and a person who cultivated the righteous path. The person who cultivated the demonic path was treated as an unforgivable sin and fell into the underworld. Those who cultivated the righteous Tao could ascend to the exalted immortal realm and become undying and indestructible. However, no one knew that the two of them actually knew each other, and they were on very good terms. They met when they were 8 years old, under the Kunlun ice mountain, and worshipped the same celestial master. It was just that the one who cultivated the demonic path was naughty and mischievous, and always wanted to cause trouble. All the immortal herbs he obtained were given to the one who cultivated the celestial path. This was because the cultivation of the celestial path required one to expend vital energy, and to comprehend great enlightenment. Only then would one be able to love all living things. Originally, the two of them were equally talented, but one day, the child who cultivated the demonic path committed a great taboo. In order to save his senior martial brother who cultivated the celestial path, he committed the sin of killing and was imprisoned in the Kunlun mountain range for 3 years. At that time, his senior apprentice brother went to accompany him every day in exchange for bringing him immortal herbs. However, he was rejected. That person who cultivated the demonic path had said, "I can't do nothing when I see you in harm's way. I can't love all living beings." It was probably because of this one sentence that he said that destroyed all possibilities of him becoming an immortal. Ever since then, he fell to the ground and became a demon. He walked through the human world, experienced the joys and sorrows of partings and reunions, saw all the streets and alleys, and slept in the tea house as a dissolute young master. He only remembered the person who disciplined him the moment they met at the foot of the Kunlun mountain. However, the two of them could no longer meet, or wherever he was, he would try his best not to appear. However, many people did not understand that those who cultivated the demonic path were not necessarily bad, and those who cultivated the celestial path were not necessarily good. When many people did something wrong, not only did they not dare to admit it, they would also push the blame. This was human nature. There was never a distinction between the demonic path and the celestial path, because the person who cultivated the demonic path was very flamboyant, and even had many secrets about some people. The more guilty a person was, the more they would want to bite the other person first. They would never remember what they had done, and would only talk about how the person who cultivated the demonic path was like. First, they would smear their reputation, and then they would set a trap. They received news that the person who cultivated the demonic path would go through a tribulation every 10 years, so they used this opportunity to attract 10,000 bolts of lightning. Ever since the demon saint was destroyed, everyone thought that his soul would be completely gone. Unexpectedly, he actually fell into the yellow springs, leaving behind a wisp of his soul. They said that the person who destroyed him was not these people who cultivated the righteous path, but because he refused to obey the heavenly mandate. However, on this day, there was also a person who refused to obey the heavenly mandate. He used his immortal bones, flesh, and blood in exchange for a change of fate. The change was not his, but someone else, the person who should have ended here. Buddha asked him if he would regret turning from an immortal into a being that didn't know what was good or bad. He replied that he didn't regret it. The person he missed the most was when he had met him when he was 8 years old. Now, his luck was full, and he could take all of it. Buddha shook his head. This was a high immortal, the person with the most spiritual energy. How could he end up like this? He didn't agree, and only said that this was the heavenly mandate. He laughed, and the white sword in his hand turned into a sword shadow. With blood as a guide, he cleared out hell, and caused the 3 realms to shake. That night, there were no ghosts on the 800-mile road to the Yellow Springs. There were only dazzling and blooming mandalas. The road that was built seemed to be calling someone home. When Guanyin saw this, she shed a tear. The bell of Layin Temple rose and fell, and Buddha only chanted Amitabha. With that, little Tiger Bo tilted her head, looking as though she was waiting for a compliment. Momo, is this story good? You should continue making it up. Chin Mo glanced sideways at her. Little Tiger Bo wagged her tail. Let me think about it. I'll tell you tomorrow. Be good and sleep first. That way, you will get better. Chin Mo looked at the little face that was very close to him. He pinched it with his fingers. Silly, don't worry. Huh? Little Tiger Bo blinked in confusion. Chin Mo's drug took effect. When the little person was about to close her eyes, her voice floated over. Even if we are different after we grow up, I won't let anyone hurt you. Little Tiger Bo heard this sentence. Her pair of tiger eyes lit up slightly. In reality, little Tiger Bo more or less understood that ordinary people wouldn't be able to accept what she was going to do in the future. She had watched so many cartoons and movies. They all said that people from different worlds would never be together. She had asked Grandpa before. The little princess's family was a policeman. No, that wasn't right. It should be the kind that was more powerful than the police. Anyway, they were specially here to catch her. She didn't want the person who came to catch her to be Momo. She didn't want Momo to hate her after knowing what she did for a living. Hence, even the story she made up revealed a kind of desire. What made her happy was what he said. Chapter 1443. When the two of them were together, time would always pass especially quickly. Little Tiger Bo leaned against Chin Mo's head to sleep. When she woke up, it was already late at night. Only then did she remember that people who were sick had to eat more. There was no one at home, so little Tiger Bo volunteered to cook a bowl of noodles. She didn't know if it was because the color was too heavy or because of the seasoning. After Chin Mo ate it, he didn't recover. He even got enteritis. Later, the doctor explained the reason. When he had a cold, his digestive system was weak. Moreover, the seasoning of the instant noodles was too greasy. It wasn't strange for this to happen. Little Tiger Bo felt very guilty. She climbed the wall at night and asked Chin Mo to forgive her. At that time, Chin Mo didn't have any strength at all. He simply said, "Come up." When the little tiger climbed up, he reached out and hugged her. She was soft and fluffy, causing his lips to lift subconsciously. "Little Bojo, are you an idiot?" "No," Little Tiger Bo said seriously. Little Tiger Bo said seriously, "But Momo, this is the first time you took the initiative to hug me. Should I celebrate? Do you want me to sell you?" Chin Mo glanced at her. "I'm very expensive. I will work hard to earn money." Little Tiger Bo clenched her small fists. Chin Mo held her fists. "When you are 18, I will tell you if I will sell you or not." 18. Little Tiger Bo counted with her fingers. There was still a long time. "Can't you agree now?" Chin Mo raised his eyebrows. "No." "All right, 18. I will definitely be taller by then. I will be like my mother and wear a suit to look for you." The more Bojo spoke, the more comfortable she felt. Chin Mo frowned. "Suit? Shouldn't you wear a skirt?" "No, the overbearing CEOs in the movies all wear suits." Little Tiger Bo yawned as she spoke. Her small head rested on Chin Mo's shoulder like a real little tiger. She wagged her tail twice. "Momo, I'm sleepy." She was asking Chin Mo to coax her. Some habits were probably formed through nurturing. Before she knew Chin Mo, Bojo would never let anyone coax her to sleep. But now that she was listless, she would lean her little head on Chin Mo's shoulder. Chin Mo would pat her back from time to time and say something in a cold and pleasant voice. It was nothing more than asking her to sleep. There were only a few days left before the Spring Festival. No matter what, Old Master had to make a trip back to China, and so did Chin Mo. When Little Tiger Bo heard this news, she went into Chin Mo's little panda luggage. "Momo, I'll be your checked luggage. Bring me along." It wasn't that he hadn't thought of bringing a certain little tiger along with him. Chin Mo went to ask, but the lazy Mr. Bo didn't agree. He smiled faintly and said, "No." It was also that day that Chin Mo smelled the scent of blood on this adult. Even though he was wearing a trench coat, the scent was faintly discernible. But before Auntie Bo came back, he entered the bathroom. Chin Mo was a child who could keep things in his heart. That was probably what people with high IQ were like. He left a medicine box at the Bo family's house and didn't say anything. But Chin Mo didn't feel good about not being able to bring his little tiger along. Especially when he was about to get into the car, he saw a certain someone's round tiger eyes. "When I'm not around, listen to Uncle Bo, don't climb the wall all the time. You can't eat too much of the candy I give you. If you're hungry, use the key I gave you to enter the house. I've stuffed the snacks in the cupboard full. There are ready-made canned beef. Eat less instant noodles. You have my house number. Call me if you need anything. Don't be mischievous." Chin Mo couldn't help but pinch her face. "I'll be back soon." Little Tiger Bo hugged her little keyboard and nodded. She counted the time in her heart. 3 days wasn't too long. It was within his acceptable range. Even so, when the bus was about to leave, Little Tiger Bo didn't let go of Chin Mo's sleeve. But what stunned Grandpa wasn't Little Tiger Bo's actions. It was because his grandson obviously didn't want to leave. This was a completely different attitude from when he first arrived at this place. The most surprising thing was, when the car started to move, his grandson started to be absent-minded. From boarding the plane to taking off and landing, his grandson's face did not show any trace of a smile again. It wasn't until he picked up his phone and made an overseas call that his face warmed up a little. At that time, WeChat didn't exist. It wasn't as convenient as it was now. He had to use a computer to make a video call. But it was nearing the new year. Even children were busy. Moreover, there was a time difference between the two of them. The moment Chin Mo returned to the military courtyard, he was surrounded by children. He didn't have time to make a call. When he finished visiting his relatives and picked up his phone, he realized that the time wasn't right. Most importantly, he had originally planned to return after New Year's Eve. Because Madame suddenly had an important matter to deal with. Therefore, the deadline to return was lengthened. Fortunately, Chin Mo was free. He could coordinate with a certain little tiger's time to make a call. But no one picked up the call. Bo Jiu wasn't at home. Instead, she followed Mr. Bo to the university. This time, she wasn't acting cute. Although it looked like it. Bo Jiu was still wearing her little old axe pajamas. But this wasn't Mr. Bo's motive. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought his daughter to school at such a time. Something happened in the hacker world. This wasn't the first time. It had never been peaceful. This was the life he chose. But in terms of privacy, there had never been such a big oversight like this time. Some people would know him sooner or later. In the past, Mr. Bo wasn't worried about these things. But it was different now. The one lying under his desk and the woman in the opposite building were his lifeline. They were all his lifeline. Although he had already sent out a call and was waiting for the butler to come. But this also meant that Jiu wouldn't have a choice anymore. Mr. Bo looked up and glanced at the English words on the blackboard. He supported his chin with one hand and asked casually, "Jiu, do you like what we are doing now?" Little Tiger Bo leaned against the corner of the desk. She didn't say anything. Instead, she used the small keyboard to type 3 words over. Mr. Bo tilted his head. His gaze deepened. That's good. The most important thing now was to hide Jiu well. As for him, he would distract the attention of those people. He couldn't really let them find anything. He had to think carefully about moving back to the castle. Chapter 1444. The university was undoubtedly the safest place. Mr. Bo's current identity wouldn't make anyone suspicious. Especially when he and the little tiger sat on the stairs and waited for Mrs. Bo to pick them up. One big and one small, both holding a bag of yogurt in their mouths. The little tiger wagged her tail. "Dad, I want to eat chicken wings." "Lord Jiu, you have to change your habit of eating right after waking up." Mr. Bo yawned and said lazily, "Roll around later and my wife will bring you to eat." The little tiger felt that she should educate a certain adult. "Dad, I'm already 5 years old, not 1. If I roll around and act cute, it's too shameless. What do you think I should do?" Mr. Bo's voice was indifferent. "Mrs. Bo said that she doesn't want you to eat junk food." The little tiger thought about it seriously. "Then, I'll roll around. Roll a few more times. I want to eat too." Mr. Bo smiled. He reached out and pulled his collar. There was a different kind of mischievous look on his face. The little tiger nodded her head and gave him an "okay" gesture. One big and one small, they maintained their previous sitting posture. The two faces were very eye-catching. Many university students looked over. They were extremely cute. Mr. Bo was quite famous in the university. This wasn't the first time he brought Bo Jiu to wait for Mrs. Bo. But every time, the foreigners would feel a strong impact. They wanted to give birth to a Xiao Naofu too. Mrs. Bo was wearing a professional suit and high heels. The moment she walked into the university, she saw this scene. The two of them were drinking yogurt again. Was the food in the university so bad? Mrs. Bo couldn't help but smile. She walked over. Little Tiger Bo was the first to see Mrs. Bo. Her round tiger eyes lit up instantly. She pounced towards Mrs. Bo. "Mom. Are you good today?" Mrs. Bo looked at her attire and rolled up her daughter's sleeves. Little Tiger Bo reported seriously, "I'm very good. Dad has been sleeping." "Hey. Mr. Bo smiled lazily. He freed one hand and knocked the book on little Tiger Bo's head. Then he leaned forward and placed his head on Mrs. Bo's shoulder. I didn't sleep on purpose. I wrote too many documents and felt dizzy. It was rare to see Mrs. Bo with such an aura. When she appeared, many people looked in her direction. Successful people and students who were still in school had different auras to begin with. The more it was like this, the easier it was to prove that the extremely handsome PhD student was actually a sugar daddy of some female entrepreneur. Many hot girls and new students felt that it was a pity. He really couldn't understand why he had to find someone older than him. Of course, the man's appearance was impeccable. He looked no different from them in terms of age. Due to the nurturing of her temperament, she gave off the feeling of an iceberg beauty for no reason, but it was different from that. Because when she was wearing a professional suit, the feeling of a superior was not only that of a beauty, but also an indescribable sense of coldness and abstinence. Why are you feeling dizzy all of a sudden? As Mrs. Bo spoke, she stretched out her hand and rubbed a certain adult's head. Little Tiger Bo completely understood her father's tricks. When it came to fighting for favor with her, her father always spared no effort. Anyway, he wasn't too afraid that people in school would say that he was a sugar daddy. From a certain point of view, Mr. Bo was indeed like a little puppy. However, when the people beside him saw his actions just now, they all asked themselves if this was the evil senior they knew. They didn't feel like it. Mr. Bo didn't care about other people's opinions. Recently, Mrs. Bo had been too cold to him. He had to find some sense of existence. Little Tiger Bo didn't forget what happened just now. She wagged her tail and blinked her tiger eyes slightly. Dad said that he wanted to eat chicken wings just now. His dizziness should be because he is hungry. Mr. Bo glanced over and raised his eyebrows. His Lord Gio and that fellow from the Chin family were so good that they knew how to use others as a shield. Chicken wings? Mrs. Bo seemed to be helpless between the two of them. She sighed slightly. Just one meal. After that, I will go to the airport. Both of you eat some vegetables tonight. You can't eat meat all the time. Mr. Bo hugged her waist and planted a kiss on her lips. Don't worry, I will take good care of Lord Gio. Mrs. Bo didn't expect such a sudden action from him. The people around them were looking at them. Was he no longer resisting letting others know what their relationship was? Or was he too young and always did things according to his mood? Mrs. Bo could more or less understand this from him. She tried not to talk about their relationship in public. It wasn't because he said anything, but she could feel it. After all, he didn't even introduce his tutor and some people he knew from school. Mrs. Bo understood him on this point. It was probably strange. They had been married for so many years. She would still care about such things occasionally. It was fine this time. The last time she came to pick him up alone, she saw a girl asking him out. He rejected her. That girl said, "You can't always live off a woman like this." Mrs. Bo knew about a man's pride, so she chose not to appear. But when she thought about it carefully, the situation at home. He got his degree by himself. The clothes he was wearing were indeed bought by her, but he didn't show any signs of liking or disliking them. Even his tomahawk was his own. He shouldn't have any negative feelings in this aspect. But the people around her said that she was born strong. Big boys like him usually liked cute and lively girls or little fairies. They liked to attach themselves to people and were romantic and innocent. Mrs. Bo didn't ask him about this aspect. After all, when this person looked at her, he was really clingy. She always forgot that they weren't suitable for each other. At the start, little Tiger Bo was still in Mrs. Bo's arms. Unknowingly, Mr. Bo carried her over and placed her on his neck. Little Tiger Bo grabbed her father's unruly hair and wagged her tail behind her. She didn't want to act cute. But when they saw such a handsome man with a little tiger on his head, people would look at him. Boss Lou? Mrs. Bo's surname was Lou. She followed chauffeur all year round. This time, when she saw her boss come out, she walked over and was about to open the car door. But Mrs. Bo stopped him. "We will eat nearby. Old Juan, you should go and eat something too." "Okay, Boss Lou." With that, Old Juan glanced in Mr. Bo's direction and greeted him respectfully. "Sir." Although he didn't understand why Boss Lou chose such a person, since Boss Lou had agreed to it, as a driver, he wouldn't say much. Miss Jo was as lovable as ever. Old Juan smiled as he looked at the little tiger. This was probably the most unusual and happiest family he had ever met. However, Boss Lou was usually too busy. As for Mr. Bo, there was something that was hard to explain. He liked to stick to Boss Lou too much, but he wasn't like an ordinary gigolo. He couldn't explain it. He just hoped that Mr. Bo wouldn't let Boss Lou down. It was always a happy thing to have chicken wings. There were cola, fries, and hamburgers on the table. Mrs. Bo was rolling up her daughter's sleeves. When she looked up, there was a hamburger in front of her. After seeing her take a bite, the person smiled. This smile didn't matter. The people eating here were all university students. Many of them looked straight at him. However, in the next second, he didn't know what happened. The person's fingers paused for a moment. He raised his gaze slightly and looked out of the window. The color of his eyes darkened. The sound of the police car rushing past rang in her ears. This wasn't the most important thing. Instead, it was a few people dressed in black under the tree. They seemed to be asking something. "What's wrong?" Mrs. Bo followed his gaze but didn't see anything. Mr. Bo took a bite of the hamburger. "Nothing. I have classes in the afternoon. I probably can't send you off." Mrs. Bo paused. Then, she smiled and said, "I know. Eat more." He probably had some concerns. This time, there were more people who saw them. The meal was finished very quickly. When Mrs. Bo was around, Mr. Bo was still lazy. He waited until she left. After she left, he made a call. "Come over and bring Joe back." "Yes, boss." On the other end of the line was a very magnetic British voice. Little Tiger Bo had heard it before, but this time, it was a little different. It seemed a little deep. After around 5 minutes, a black Lamborghini appeared in front of the school gate. A black Lamborghini appeared in front of the school gate. A man got out of the car with something that looked like a suitcase in his hand. But a normal suitcase wouldn't be carried by hand. In addition, the person was wearing a black tuxedo and white gloves. He looked like a noble deacon in the movies. Even though he was already middle-aged, it was rare for a middle-aged person to wear a formal suit so handsomely. But this person was able to express his mature gentlemanly aura to the fullest. That wasn't all. He was also carrying a small cake box. When he saw Bojo, he placed his right hand behind his back and smiled lightly. "Young lord, I finally see you." At that time, the word young lord was a little unfamiliar to Bojo. But even now, she was very clear about what she wanted to do in the future. He blinked his tiger eyes and looked at the person in front of him. The old butler was so cute that his heart almost melted. This was completely different from his master. His young lord was a little tiger, a very, very cute little tiger. His master was completely different. The dark aura was thicker. It had been like this since he was young. Mr. Bo allowed the two of them to interact. He took the suitcase from the butler's hands. He opened it in the car. At this time, there weren't many people in front of the university. The mystery of the suitcase was that you wouldn't be able to guess that it would open so many layers. Other than a black trench coat, there was also a small notebook and some weapons inside. Mr. Bo changed into the trench coat first. Then, he lifted the suitcase. He wore his glasses and looked very gentle. He didn't look like he was going to do anything. But if people knew what he was taking, they would know what he was going to do next. He was going to get rid of a few bugs. As for little Tiger Bo, she was naturally brought back by the butler. According to Mr. Bo's instructions, it was most reliable to send her to the William family. That was because that family was born to be dramatic. They were so careless that they wouldn't think about what happened. On the other hand, the butler was very polite. He bowed towards little William and said, "Young lord, I'll have to trouble you for a day." Little William's eyes widened. After all, he had only seen such a person in the movies his father filmed. Little Tiger Bo didn't need to trouble others. But similarly, she knew that her father had something to do. Little Tiger Bo was a thoughtful person. When she smelled the different atmosphere this time, she climbed up to the window several times to take a look. It wasn't until much later that his father finally showed up. Mr. Bo was here to bring Little Tiger Bo home. In reality, other than that kid from the Chin family, he didn't feel at ease leaving Joe in the hands of anyone else for a day. It wasn't that the others weren't good. To be honest, the others weren't smart enough. For example, right now, little William couldn't tell that Mr. Bo's hand was injured no matter how hard he looked. After all, he was still the same as before. His tie wasn't tied properly and was half slanted to the side. It was obvious that he was living off a woman. Only her lips were a little pale. Only Little Tiger Bo could tell that something was wrong with her father. She didn't let him hug her. Instead, she held his hand and walked home. When they were halfway there, Mr. Bo leaned against the tree trunk. His breathing was unstable. "Joe, Little Tiger Bo was still very capable. Even a child would feel uncomfortable seeing such a scene. But he didn't panic at all. He took out his phone from his father's pocket and called Grandpa Butler. From making the call to hanging up the phone and waiting for the butler to arrive, the entire process was completely unlike that of a 5-year-old child. However, her little hands were trembling a little, and the tiger did not even lift its head. After Grandpa Butler rushed over, he started to treat his master's injuries. The hand injury was easy to deal with, but the bullet in his shoulder had to be taken out. This was how his master was able to walk all the way and still take the time to call his madam. He smiled gently. "Lord Joe. She is downstairs, playing with her little keyboard. Don't worry, I will take good care of her." After hanging up the phone, his breath leaked out. The temperature was a little high. Grandpa Butler prescribed a lot of medicine. After treating the wound, he said, "It's all thanks to young Lord's timely call." Mr. Bo leaned against the wall. One of his shoulders was wrapped in bandages. His long and narrow eyes were tilted upwards. He had the aura of a king that he didn't have in front of others. "That's why I said that she is very suitable to take over my position, both technically and psychologically." Words to the readers, this book is participating in the QQ reading event. As long as the readers have tipped, they can participate in the lucky draw. There are many prizes. Everyone, please leave more comments and participate. I wish everyone a big prize. The prizes are as follows: 1. Reading points / book coins. 2. Author discount coupon / book discount coupon. Chapter 1445. Downstairs. Little Tiger Bo was tapping on her keyboard. She was trying to use her computer to contact Momo. But when she went into the chat tool, she looked at the time on the monitor. The sky in China wasn't bright yet. Momo was definitely sleeping. Little Tiger Bo paused and scratched her face. Then she looked up and glanced at the second floor. Recently, her father had been more mysterious than before. She didn't know what happened. If Momo was here, he could help her analyze it. Momo seemed to know everything. Little Tiger Bo hugged her little keyboard. She glanced at the gray profile picture again. Her tiger tail drooped and she couldn't help but mutter, "Momo, I miss you." At that time, Bojo was still young. She spoke in a childish voice, which was very likable. It would make people forget all the mischief she had done when she was naughty. Chin Mo had asked himself this before. What was so good about that person? He couldn't say it. But he couldn't find another person like that person. But there seemed to be something buried in his heart and he couldn't take it out. But even if he was half a world away, that person's shadow would still appear in front of his eyes. In China, there were many gatherings and rules after the Chinese New Year. It was especially so for aristocratic families like the Yin family and the Qin family. Hence, when the Chinese New Year arrived, Qin Mo had to go to many places. He would visit every old general in the courtyard. In the north, this was called New Year greeting. The Qin family had always been conservative. They always valued Chinese etiquette. But this year, when Qin Mo was greeting them, he was obviously distracted. When he saw the children there, he would pause for a moment. There were always fights in the courtyard. It was the kind of fight between boys. In the past, when they saw Qin Mo, they would automatically restrain themselves. After all the children in the courtyard knew that Qin Mo might look like a gentle little prince, but when he fought, it was really painful. But today, when they saw them gathering here, he acted as though he didn't see it. What was going on? The children couldn't understand. A little girl called Brother Mo came over. Qin Mo didn't turn back. This was really not in line with his usual etiquette. Just when all the children noticed that Qin Mo was different, Qin Mo's eyes lit up. When Qin Mo saw these people, he kept wondering what the little tiger was doing. Did she not eat properly again? It should be impossible. When he left, he had told her to go to his room to get snacks if she was hungry. It was just that the phone at home rarely rang. Because of this, he specifically told Aunt Zhang that if there was a call, she had to tell him no matter what. There was no movement on the internet either. Although he did not want to admit it. But there was a thought that was getting stronger and stronger. Worried about the time he was away. A certain someone had forgotten about him while playing. After all, she loved to play. Little Tiger Bo really wanted to play with someone for a while. But this wasn't the reason why she agreed to go out with Little William. Instead, Little William said that this time, the crew was going to a place where they could ask for an amulet. There were many different kinds of churches that could be found in foreign countries. Hence, when she heard that they were going to pray to Buddha, Little Tiger Bo agreed without hesitation. On this day, Qin Mo boarded the plane early without Grandpa An's company. If they continued to wait, they would only be able to leave after 10 days. Qin Mo couldn't wait that long. It wasn't because of anything else. He just felt that it was time to go back. Jiang City International Airport. When the ticketing officer saw such a young child at the security check, he confirmed again. "Are you boarding the plane alone?" Qin Mo replied faintly. He was still holding his little panda suitcase. After all, such a small suitcase didn't need to be checked in. Probably because of Qin Mo's aura, the ticketing officer retracted his expression. In reality, Grandpa had personally sent Qin Mo to the airport. When they alighted, Grandpa was still saying, "Why are you going back so early? Do you miss Joe?" Qin Mo's little face didn't show any expression. "But it's time to go back." "Oh." Grandpa studied his grandson's expression and smiled even more happily. "I miss Joe. When you reach there, remember to give me a call. I heard from the nanny that you are quite obsessed with the phone recently." Qin Mo knew that his grandfather was treating him as a joke. He didn't say much. When he was on the plane, he was still thinking that a certain little tiger would probably like the things he brought over this time. They were all delicious Chinese New Year goods. Preserved beef, ham and some snacks. When the old generals in the courtyard heard that little Qin Mo wanted these things, they were all surprised. Little Qin Mo was usually a little ice cube. He wasn't picky when it came to his upbringing and manners. However, compared to their grandchildren, he matured too early and didn't eat these things at all. This time, they didn't know what was going on. He even got someone to bring 3 big bags of fried dough twists from Jinwei. Not to mention the local snack of Jiang City, donkey rolling. He bought at least 5 boxes. It was indeed a festive atmosphere. But who was he going to feed these things? No one knew. After all, Qin Mo had already boarded the plane. On the other side of the ocean. Little William was happy. He had long heard that the little demon from the east wouldn't be back for a while. This way, he wouldn't feel pressured when interacting with Joe. He wasn't afraid of the little demon. Yes, he wasn't afraid at all. What are you doing? Joe couldn't understand why William was walking around. Little William coughed lightly. Nothing. So he really wasn't around. That's good. I felt that you heaved a sigh of relief just now, Joe said in a tiger's voice when she faced Little William. Little William, no, I didn't. Let's not talk about this. Joe, we have to leave quickly. Okay. Little Tiger Bo wasn't wearing her tiger pajamas. Instead, she was wearing a taekwondo uniform. The black belt was very eye-catching. This was also the reason why Little William didn't dare to touch Joe. However, he was also very puzzled. Why didn't Joe show her skills in front of the little demon? When he thought about this, Little William couldn't hold it in anymore. He asked what was on his mind. Joe sized him up from head to toe before saying, Momo isn't like you. Momo is good-looking and gentle. He gets shy easily. If I use force, I will scare him. Little William. When you beat me up until my face is swollen, you never considered that you would scare me. Also, look at my eyes. They are blue. Don't you Asians like eyes that are like the sea? As expected, his daddy was lying to him. Joe was completely different from those actors who came overseas to develop their careers. This wasn't the first time Little William's heart felt stifled. Fortunately, this child's self-healing ability was good. In less than 10 minutes, he started to call Joe his brother again. Every time Joe came to this kind of production, she would help Little William settle some trouble. Little William didn't like people trying to get close to him because of his father. But because of his personality, he couldn't say anything. Usually, Joe would stand there and look at those people. She would ask them if they wanted to go and play. Then, she would solve the problem perfectly. It was the same this time. The difference was that Little William was still playing around. Although he was very interested in the Eastern faith, he was also in awe of it. But he didn't seem to have any requests. On the other hand, Joe ran here and there. She didn't seem to care about the sweat on her face. She was really like a little tiger. She knelt on the horsetail whisk mat seriously. Her small hands were clasped together. Her round eyes didn't blink. It was rare for such a young child to be able to do this. Unless she was a little monk in a temple. She was probably too young. An old monk wearing a robe walked over and chanted, Amitabha. He had seen countless people, but he had rarely seen such a fate. Her murderous aura filled the sky, but she had a Buddhist fate. What kind of fate was this? Joe probably heard this voice. She tilted her head and blinked her eyes at him like a little tiger. Master. The old monk was stunned when he saw her. His gaze landed on the tear mole at the corner of her eye. He couldn't help but stretch out his hand, wanting to touch the child's head. Little Tiger Bo was still kneeling there. Her small face was very serious. Master, I want to ask for 2 protective amulets. 2? The old monk asked. For yourself? Little almsgiver, if you ask for too many protective amulets, they won't work. Little Tiger Bo shook her head. I don't want it for myself. One is for my parents and the other is for Momo. I hope that they can be safe. Master, I only have this one wish. Isn't it working? The old monk looked into her eyes. After a long time, he said, you can make other wishes. You don't have to ask for your parents. Blessings can be given to others. Why not yourself? It's my good fortune that Momo is safe and sound. Little Tiger Bo's eyes were very big. They gave people a furry feeling. Even though it was a life of misfortune. It's my fortune that Momo is safe and sound. The old monk was shocked. In that case, I will give 2 protective amulets to Little Almsgiver. If Little Almsgiver regrets it, you don't have to give one of the protective amulets. When little Tiger Bo received the 2 protective amulets, her eyes lit up. I won't regret it. Thank you, Master. After she finished speaking, she even bowed to him. The old monk stood there and chanted Ba again. He only retracted his gaze when the small voice could no longer be heard. Should he say that children were all sincere? That was why he said such words. However, how much did a person value another person in order to treat that person's safety as his own blessing? The old monk looked up at the Buddha statue in the middle. A novice monk came over to invite him to the front hall. He said that all the believers were here. The old monk waved his hand. Today's grace has been given out. Ask the benefactors to come next month. Given out? The novice monk scratched the back of his head. When did he give it out? Didn't his master just come out? Moreover, he could give 3 people a month. This was what his master had promised. Why did he push it to next month the moment he came out? The novice monk didn't understand. Master, if you give out the grace, there are still 2 people left. No. The old monk reached out and touched his disciple's head. Go. Tell me the truth. The novice monk replied, yes. He didn't understand who was lucky enough to get 3 sets of grace from his master. After all, the grace given by his master was always effective. This was also the reason why so many people came here. Hence, people only knew that Chin Mo wrote in the amulet. He said that his wish was for the little tiger to live a peaceful and happy life. They didn't know what Bojio got for him. Little William didn't look over. He felt that this place was mysterious. There were some places that he couldn't get out of. It didn't look like the buildings and specifications of their foreign countries. Fortunately, Grandfather Butler was here. It was strange. In the past, Joe never needed to bring anyone along when they went out. Why was this Grandpa Butler following him and Joe wherever they went this time? Fortunately, it didn't affect their play. Little William was curious about what Bojio asked for. Joe, go and pay your respects to the Eastern gods. What did you ask for? They said that you can shake the Buddha. I can't remember what the Buddha is. Anyway, you can ask for a marriage. I already have Momo. I don't need to ask for a marriage. The only flaw was that Momo still hadn't agreed to sell her to be her pet. Little William's lips froze on the spot. Joe, did you consider my feelings when you said that? Obviously, there was none. The 2 children ate ice cream together. With Grandfather Butler following them, little William experienced what it felt like to have a mouth that didn't have time to stop. There was always delicious food for them to eat. Also, there wasn't a fixed time. Hence, they played a little late. Chin Mo landed at 1 p.m. There was a driver arranged by Old Master and at the airport. It wasn't important who would bring him back. After all, a certain little tiger was so young. It wasn't possible for her to come and fetch him. Also, until now, she didn't know that he was coming back. Chin Mo looked at the big and small bags on the back seat. He used his brain a little and he could imagine the expression on the little tiger's face when she saw him and the pile of snacks. She would definitely pounce on him, hug his waist and say that she missed him. He knew a certain someone's routine very well. With that in mind, Chin Mo tilted his head, the corners of his lips curving upwards. The driver looked at the rearview mirror in confusion. Young master, why are you smiling? Is there something interesting happening outside? There wasn't any. They were on a long bridge and there were cars everywhere. Then, why was young master smiling? Of course, Chin Mo wouldn't say that he couldn't help but smile when he thought of a certain little tiger. He just tilted his head and said faintly, nothing. But as he got closer, he couldn't help but smile. It was faint and faint. He was about to see a certain little tiger. At this time, she should still be doing her mission. Chapter 1446. There was no response. Was it because she was too serious about her mission? Qin Mo thought that a certain little tiger might be wearing earphones. He looked up and glanced at the balcony that connected the two houses. Wearing a down jacket, he did something he had never done before. He learned from a certain little tiger and climbed over the wall. He probably wasn't familiar with her. When someone like Qin Mo climbed over the wall, he gave off a feeling that it didn't match his temperament. When the young golden-haired butler came back, he saw this scene. At first, when he saw the small figure, he thought that Miss Jiao was being naughty again. He said anxiously in English, "Oh no, Miss Jiao, young master will be back soon. If you do this, young master will be back soon." When the golden-haired butler saw the cold little face, even the hair on his head was shocked. How was this possible? Everyone knew that their young master was a model when it came to etiquette. How could he climb the wall? "Why are you shouting?" Qin Mo lowered his gaze and glanced at him. His voice was indifferent. The golden-haired butler stood there in a suit. "No, nothing." He really wanted Miss Jiao to see how his young master looked when he climbed the wall. He really wanted to laugh. Qin Mo ignored him. After standing on the balcony, he walked towards the floor-to-ceiling window. Through the floor-to-ceiling window, he could clearly see that there was no one inside. Uncle Bo and the others weren't here. Even a certain little tiger wasn't here. The room wasn't that messy. Suddenly, it was so clean. It seemed as though the owner hadn't come back. Of course, at that time, Qin Mo didn't have the inhuman ability to speculate as he grew up. After all, he was still a child. But the feeling was right. Qin Mo looked in a certain direction through the floor-to-ceiling window. A certain little tiger should have been sitting there. Her little claws were tapping on the keyboard. She must have scratched her face from time to time because she didn't know how to roll up her sleeves. However, she looked as though she was the most serious. Otherwise, she would lie at the side and grab snacks to eat. If he hadn't asked her to sit on the chair, she would have been naughty forever. Qin Mo didn't think that the room would be so empty without the little tiger that was crawling back and forth. Downstairs, the golden-haired butler looked at the back of the little figure standing on the balcony. He didn't understand why. From his angle, his young master's face seemed a little disappointed. He didn't wait for him to see clearly. Qin Mo slid down the wall. What was going on with the Bo family recently? He didn't know if it was because he was too serious about this problem, or if he didn't have any experience in climbing walls. When Qin Mo came down, he accidentally cut his hand. The young golden-haired butler exclaimed and hurriedly ran over. "Young master, are you all right?" "I just wiped my hand. What can happen? Let's go back first." Qin Mo tilted his head and glanced at the back of his hand. His face was as calm as ever. He was still wearing the small black down jacket. Qin Mo really didn't expect that the little tiger wouldn't be around at this time. It wasn't because of what her grandfather had said, but because he missed her. How could he be so childish? Once again, Qin Mo denied his grandfather's words. However, his eyes turned to look behind him. He bought her so many things. I wanted her to see it sooner. That was why he didn't even go home and went straight to the Bo family's house. Chapter 1447. The golden-haired butler felt a little disappointed. His young master felt a little disappointed. Was it because of the huge difference between Chinese and Western culture? He couldn't find a better adjective. Or was it because Miss Jiao wasn't by his young master's side today? That was why he felt that the tall and straight-back view was different from other times. It made sense. Usually, at this time. What was his young master doing? He was either helping Miss Jiao to roll up her clothes or helping her to put on a scarf. He would even put on a hat so that Miss Jiao wouldn't see the road. He wanted her to not be so naughty and obediently let his young master hold her hand and walk. But today, his young master didn't do any of these. When he walked forward, he felt a little lonely. He couldn't remember the Chinese saying. Anyway, it was just a lonely shadow. At this moment, a car light suddenly shone over. At this moment, Chin Mo realized that the sky had turned dark. He turned his head and saw that the car was parked in front of the Bo family's house. But that car didn't belong to the Bo family. Just as Chin Mo furrowed his brows, the car door was suddenly pushed open. The car door was suddenly pushed open and a little tiger jumped out. She shouted, "Momo, Momo." She pounced towards his direction. Because she was too happy, little tiger Bo forgot to control her strength. She accidentally pushed Chin Mo onto the ground. "Momo, why are you here?" Her big tiger eyes were round and black. She couldn't hide the joy in her eyes. Chin Mo didn't correct her about her strength. This was the first time he didn't tell little Bojio not to pounce on him so easily. Instead, he turned his head and placed his hand on her waist. He probably wanted to enjoy this reunion after a long time. That was why he wanted them to be closer. But he didn't want others to see his emotions. Thus, he buried his head on the little tiger's shoulder. His voice was calm. "I'm back." This was the first time little tiger Bo saw her little princess Chin being so proactive and a little shy. She happily took out the amulet she had begged from Master. Without thinking, she pulled a red string and put it around his neck. "Momo, a present for you." Chin Mo replied, "MMH." His voice didn't sound like anything. But the young golden-haired butler could see the slight difference when he looked at him. The smile on his young master's face was too obvious. Was he that happy? Also, don't think that young master's N is nothing. Except for the things that Miss Gio gave him, he would accept them. If anyone else offered it to him, he would politely reject it. As long as the person who gave the gift was Miss Gio. Whether it was a small stone, a wild mushroom, or that huge piggy bank. This kind of inconspicuous thing was placed in the most conspicuous place in the room by the young master. It was impossible for others to touch it. On the other hand, the young master loved it when people asked him questions like, "Where did you buy this tiger piggy bank? It's rare to see such a big one." The young master would always reply lightly, "A certain little tiger gave it to me." In fact, the corners of his mouth were curling up slightly. At that time, the young butler inexplicably understood why the young master would place these things in the most conspicuous place. He was clearly showing off. Now, it seemed that the young master had one more thing to show off. The two little people hugged each other on the ground for a long time. Little Tiger Bo was still instructing, "Momo, the amulet can't leave your body. If not, it won't work. Momo, you must listen to me. MMH, listen to me." At the end of her sentence, little Tiger Bo stretched out her hand and touched Chin Mo's head. Grandfather Butler wasn't around. Besides the driver and the bodyguard, there was another person in the car. It was little William. He always felt that Gio had a special characteristic. It was that after seeing that little demon from the east, she would automatically block everyone around her. Little William followed them and called Bo Gio. Then, he said, "Gio, let's meet at another place tomorrow. If Uncle Bo doesn't come back today, come to my house and sleep." Grandfather Butler said not to stay at home alone. Little Tiger Bo didn't feel anything when she heard this. This was the sentence that little William said the most these 2 days. When had little Tiger Bo ever listened to him? But the moment Chin Mo saw little William, the color of his eyes darkened. A certain little tiger alighted from William's family car. Also, sleep, sleep. This was the first time Chin Mo felt a huge rock pressing on his chest. Angry? Disappointed? Angry? Probably all of them. That was why Chin Mo couldn't control himself. Before little William could say anything, he pulled little Tiger Bo up from his body. He ignored everyone and pulled her wrist directly into the Ann's house. He couldn't control his strength. But Chin Mo didn't understand. She was the one who was pulled up by brute force. Why was he the one who felt his fingers hurting? The place where he got scratched when he climbed over the wall just now seemed to be on fire. It was burning. It seemed as though something was burning in his chest. He thought that she would listen to him and not go out with anyone else. He admitted that his possessiveness wasn't normal. As an ordinary child, how could she not play with others? But Chin Mo couldn't control his thoughts. For example, he kept thinking that this was the little tiger he was raising. The little tiger should only look at him and play with him. She shouldn't be close to others. He only raised this little tiger. He wasn't interested in other people at all. Since he could do it, a certain little tiger should be able to do it too. But not only did she not listen to him, she even became so intimate with little William. When Chin Mo lowered his gaze, he tried to calm his emotions but he couldn't. Little Bojo, how many times have I told you? You are a girl. Can't a girl be reserved? Little Tiger Bo's small face was serious. I'm very reserved. You pounce on people whenever you see them. Is that considered being reserved? Chin Mo knew that he was venting his anger but he couldn't control it. Little Tiger Bo's round eyes were a little gray. Momo, if you don't like me like this, I won't pounce on you in the future. This isn't the first time you said this. You even said that you would listen to me obediently. Forget it, why am I telling you this? Little Bojo, I've said it before, if you want to play with others, don't play with me. Bojo's eyes were cold as she looked at Bojo. After he finished speaking, Chin Mo turned and walked towards the stairs. Little Tiger Bo instinctively wanted to hug him. Don't always use this method. Chin Mo tilted his head. His small side profile was handsome and cold. If you want to play with others, then play with them. I don't want to control you anymore. Little Tiger Bo was a little hurt when she heard this. I didn't ask you to control me. You are too strict. I'm just mischievous. I didn't do anything bad. When Chin Mo heard this, he didn't say anything else. He went upstairs directly. The young golden-haired butler was a little dumbfounded when he saw this. After all, he had never seen these two little people quarrel. Miss Jo and his young master were so close that people would think that they were biological siblings. After all, when his young master treated Miss Jo, he always spoiled her. Hence, no matter what Miss Jo did, he never got angry. At most, he would frown and lower his gaze to clean up Miss Jo. Miss Jo, on the other hand, liked to give gifts to his young master. She always acted like she wanted to take care of him. In this house, Miss Jo was the one who poured water and brought fruits. This was the first time the two of them quarreled. The young golden-haired butler wanted to say something. Little Tiger Bo couldn't take it anymore. She stood there, not being stubborn anymore. Her little head was lowered. No one knew what she was thinking about. Then she lifted the little keyboard and walked out of the door. She was listless the entire time. She also wondered if she was being too passionate at times. But she thought that Momo liked it. If not, Momo wouldn't allow her to fool around. She knew that she was mischievous. But she had been controlled for so long. How could he just ignore her when he said so? Couldn't he be more trustworthy? Little Tiger Bo was so angry that she threw the little keyboard in her hands. She didn't want it anymore. But the moment she threw it, she remembered the scene of that person dismantling the little keyboard and reassembling it. She ran back and picked up the little keyboard on the ground. When Mr. Bo saw this scene, he pushed his motorcycle up and lifted his helmet. He whistled in a very cool manner and said lazily, "Who made my Lord Joe angry? I don't want to play with little princess anymore. He doesn't like me at all." Little Tiger Bo hugged the little keyboard. Her lips were pressed into a line. Before Mr. Bo could say anything, Little Tiger Bo opened her mouth again. Little Tiger Bo opened her mouth again. "Dad, can I kidnap little Princess Chin? He won't like me anyway. After I kidnap him, he might fall in love with me after some time." Mr. Bo tilted his helmet and knocked Little Tiger Bo's head. "If you want your dad to be wanted by the entire world, kidnap your little princess." "What should I do? Sigh, I'm so frustrated." Little Tiger Bo tilted her head and lowered her voice. I haven't seen Momo for a long time. But Momo said that I shouldn't be reserved and that I shouldn't keep pouncing on people. Mr. Bo, who was used to being his daughter's relationship counselor, agreed with her. His voice was still casual. He wore a leather jacket and jeans, looking very cool. You really shouldn't be so proactive. You should keep that little ice block from the Chin family hanging. Don't say bad things about Momo. Little Tiger Bo was still very protective of her child. I should be the one saying it. Mr. Bo. Was this daughter his biological daughter? All right, Lord Jiao, let's talk tomorrow. Mr. Bo reached out and picked up the little tiger. He placed her on his neck. Let's go home and sleep. Little Tiger Bo replied. Then, she seemed to have thought of something. She grabbed her father's hair with one hand and took out another amulet from the pocket of her jacket with the other hand. Dad. Mr. Bo, I refuse to listen to you praising your little princess anymore. Chapter 1448. Little Tiger Bo widened her eyes. She had a serious expression on her face. I praise my little princess because he is too good. For example, he knows things that Dad doesn't know. Mom says that he has a scholarly aura. He isn't like Dad, who can't pretend no matter how hard he tries. Not only does he feed me, but he also tells me stories before I sleep and teaches me how to write. Dad, you don't know how to write. In the yard surrounded by white fences, Mr. Bo threw his motorcycle into the yard casually. He didn't seem like an adult at all. Lord Jiao is too much. What do you mean by pretending? I'm a PhD student, understand? I bought it. Little Tiger Bo sat on his neck and grabbed his hair. She glanced down. Dad, don't talk about this anymore. I want my face too. After all, Mom always says that I'm like you. Mr. Bo yawned and smiled devilishly. Isn't it good to be like me? That little ice block from the Chin family probably doesn't even know how to climb over a wall. How boring. Little Tiger Bo blinked. Momo wouldn't do something like climbing over a wall. Is that so? Mr. Bo tapped the black cutter on his wrist. It projected a scene of a little ice block climbing over a wall. There was a surveillance camera in front of the Bo family's house. This was why Mr. Bo could go out and do some things without worry even if there was no one at home. It was because it could be monitored 24 hours a day. After Little Tiger Bo saw the scene, she made a decision in her heart. She definitely wouldn't let her little princess climb over a wall in the future. It was too dangerous. After being interrupted by Mr. Bo, Little Tiger Bo almost forgot to give him her amulet. Fortunately, after she changed into her pajamas, she remembered it and ran to the room next door. Mr. Bo was lying on the sofa. Little Tiger Bo knew that this was her dad's habit. When her mom wasn't around, he liked to sleep like this. He was like a cheetah that was ready to wake up anytime. Dad, this is for you and Mom. Little Tiger Bo placed the amulet in Mr. Bo's palm. Mr. Bo raised his eyebrows and wore it. He wasn't superstitious, but the Bo family did have this origin. There was one thing that was true. Jill was too suitable to take over his job. Even if this path was difficult. But that seemed to be the case. Some people were destined to bear the responsibility the moment they were born. Mr. Bo leaned on the sofa. If Jill was a sweet princess who didn't know anything, perhaps he would use all his strength to make her continue to not know anything. However, their Lord Jiao had always been interested in small keyboards and was very smart. Most of all, she loved it. Mr. Bo stood up. His gaze was deep. Because of this figure, Chin Mo gave up on the idea of asking the butler to call Little Tiger Bo back. The Bo family had an adult. It seemed that he had no reason to worry about a certain someone. Chin Mo tilted his head and glanced at his hand. He thought she would be the first to notice his injury. But he didn't. Looking at the snacks they brought back from China, Chin Mo's eyes deepened. He reached out to turn off the lights in the bedroom. He didn't want to treat his wounds, and he didn't even want to sleep. It was probably because he was still jet-lagged. Through the moonlight, Chin Mo looked like a little prince lying on the bed. There didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary. In fact, he had already opened his eyes when he reached out his hand to touch a certain small heater. Why did I come back so early? As soon as this thought appeared, it never stopped. Some things, we wanted to go this way. But the world was always unpredictable. There were too many things that were out of his expectations. This was the first time the young Chin Mo knew what insomnia was. But due to his upbringing and etiquette, he wouldn't toss and turn over. He just looked at the seat beside him. A certain little tiger's liking was probably different from his liking. His liking was to monopolize a person. But she wasn't. If that was the case, everything was meaningless. Based on his personality, he should have done this. But when he wanted to raise a little tiger too much, it didn't matter whether it was his personality or not. Since she was still young and didn't understand the difference. Then he would teach her slowly. After thinking through this matter, Chin Mo decided to give a certain little tiger the cold shoulder tomorrow. She was always disobedient. Of course, if a certain little tiger took the initiative to come and reconcile with him tomorrow, he couldn't be too cold and he couldn't vent his anger on her. Even if he really lost his rationality after hearing what William said. But as long as a certain little tiger took the initiative to come and reconcile with him, it didn't matter. The night gradually darkened. At that time, no one would have thought of it. Some things weren't done in time. In the future, they might regret it. Unknowingly, fog started to appear outside. The suitcase that Mr. Bo carried over suddenly rang. This made him, who hadn't slept soundly, open his eyes suddenly. There was a tracking setting inside. Once it locked onto the target, it would make a sound. Without any delay, he unlocked the small suitcase. When he opened it, there was a screen. There was something that looked like a keyboard below. His slender and fair fingers just tapped on it twice. The ordinary screen was changed. It was changed to the most accurate lock-on route map. He used the buttons on the keyboard to enlarge the map. His face, which had always been handsome and devilish, suddenly paled to the extreme. Mr. Bo, who had always been confident in everything, no longer had that sloppy and lazy attitude. He didn't even wear his jacket. He lifted the suitcase and rushed out of the door. Hearing the sound, little Tiger Bo walked out in a daze. She rubbed her eyes and asked, "Dad, where are you going?" It wasn't that her dad had never gone out at night before. It was just that he had never gone out in such a hurry. Even his back view exuded an indescribable feeling. Hearing little Tiger Bo's voice, the slender figure paused for a moment. Then he turned around and emptied one hand to caress Bojo's head. "I'm going to fetch Madame Bo, Mom." Little Tiger Bo knew that her mom was on a business trip. Didn't she say that she would come back in a few days? But it was good that she could come back early. This way, after her dad had her mom, he would be more restrained. With her mom by her dad's side, he wouldn't do anything too dangerous. Little Bojo would always remember that day. Because on that day, the Bo family had undergone an earth-shattering change. The weather outside was very cold. But Mr. Bo didn't seem to feel it at all. Even though he was riding a motorcycle and didn't wear any protective gear, his side profile didn't reveal any expression. That pair of eyes seemed to be dyed with endless darkness. He had never expected that group of people to appear at that place. The city where Madame Bo was on a business trip. This couldn't be a coincidence. There couldn't be such a coincidence. When the old butler received his master's call, it was in the wee hours of the next day. He had never heard his master's voice like that before. It was cold and emotionless. "Bring Gio back to the castle." Then, "Madam." The old butler knew that Madam was on a business trip. His master had once said that he wanted to trick Madam back to the castle. He had even thought of a scene where he would suddenly inherit his grandfather's inheritance and asked him to disguise himself as a lawyer. Why did he change his mind now? Mr. Bo stood on the street. There were cars everywhere. The sky wasn't completely bright yet. Sporadic lights filled the entire city. It was also in the wee hours of the morning that a mysterious Asian man carrying a suitcase walked into the most famous gray area in the area. The black trench coat made him look like an Avenger who had climbed out of hell. He was cold and handsome. "I will bring her back." The old butler realized that something was wrong. But now, the most important thing was to carry out the mission his master had given him. The fog was still there. It was a vast expanse. Ever since Mr. Bo left, little Tiger Bo had been sleeping on the sofa. When she heard the noise downstairs, little Tiger Bo's ears perked up. Then, she picked up the small keyboard at the side. She thought that a thief had barged in. Little Tiger Bo wanted to activate some of the traps she had made herself. After all, the sky wasn't bright yet. She didn't expect to see Grandfather Butler when she went downstairs. Her tail wagged twice. Her little face was still a little puzzled. "Grandfather Butler, why are you here?" "Young lord." The old butler took a step forward. "Like an English gentleman," he said, "time is tight. I have to bring you away immediately." Little Tiger Bo instantly sobered up. Now. The old butler scanned the surroundings. "Young lord, go and bring 1 or 2 sets of your clothes." "I don't need too many. The castle has everything. I need to go underground to clean up some things." Little Tiger Bo saw that Grandfather Butler had gone downstairs. The other things in the room hadn't changed. The clothes on the ground had been burned by Grandfather Butler using a special method. Little Tiger Bo didn't take many things. She had to carry the small keyboard in her arms. The other thing was the set that had been placed in the bedroom. That was taken by Grandfather and for her and Momo. Momo's face hadn't entered the picture. Only a pair of hands could be seen. But little Tiger Bo still treated it as a treasure. She carried it in her arms and glanced towards the family's house. She wanted to wait until daybreak before leaving. That way, she would be able to tell Momo where she had gone. The old butler saw through his young lord's thoughts. He softened his voice. "Young lord, it isn't suitable for anyone to know where we are going this time. After we settle down, Master will help you contact the family." Little Tiger Bo wagged her tail. She thought for a moment and raised her head. "Grandfather Butler, do you have a pen and paper?" The old butler would inevitably be soft-hearted towards his young lord. He knew what she wanted to do and didn't stop her. He watched as his young lord laid there and wrote inexpertly. The letter was written in both Chinese and English. The writing wasn't very good. Those who didn't know her wouldn't understand what she was trying to express. After all, little Tiger Bo didn't know how to write Chinese. She used drawing to replace it. The old butler only saw one sentence. "I won't be mischievous in the future. Momo, don't be angry. I have to work hard to earn money now. In the future, I will be able to buy you." The letter that was written was placed into the mailbox along with a thumb drive. In the foggy morning, a little tiger stood in front of the mailbox. Her ears drooped and she glanced towards the direction of the room. "Grandfather Butler, do you think my little princess will reply to my letter?" "Definitely. Their young lord was so cute. Who could bear not to reply to her letter?" Little Tiger Bo was still a little reluctant. After she got into the car, she leaned her head against the window and kept looking back. She had thought about it countless times. If only she hadn't quarreled with her little princess that time. After the quarrel, she didn't see him again the next day. She didn't even have a chance to apologize. That was probably the most regretful thing. She wanted to hug that person again. Even after they reached the ancient castle, she had dreamed of him carrying her on a chair and brushing her teeth for her. He was afraid that she would have a toothache, so he controlled the amount of sweets she ate. When she lost her teeth, he would snap his fingers at the toothless little tiger when he smiled. He didn't think that she was ugly either. He even gave her something to grind her teeth with. All of this seemed to vanish into thin air after daybreak. Because it was also 9 o'clock in the morning that day. Little Tiger Bo saw Mr. Bo, who had returned to the ancient castle. However, there was only her father. She didn't see her mother. Her father, who said that he wanted to bring her mother back, was alone. At that time, little Tiger Bo was still in a daze. She thought that her mother was busy as usual and didn't come back with her father. Mr. Bo's hands were dripping with blood. His long legs were supporting the motorcycle. His black trench coat was fluttering in the wind. When he took off his helmet, he gave off an indescribable feeling of darkness and fatigue. The old butler's worry was obvious. When he looked at Mr. Bo again, the light in his eyes was different from usual. Little Tiger Bo hugged her little keyboard and called out, "Dad." Mr. Bo seemed to have regained a trace of rationality. His face was stained with blood. His slender figure knelt on one knee and placed his head on little Tiger Bo's shoulder. His voice was a little hoarse. "Lord Joe, I'm sorry. This time, I'm afraid I have to go against my words." What did he mean by going against his words? Little Tiger Bo didn't understand why she was crying. It was probably because she felt her father trembling slightly. It was so unfamiliar. Little Tiger Bo didn't ask where her mother went. She didn't dare to ask. She was a little afraid. No, it wasn't a little. She was too afraid. She hugged the little keyboard in her arms and allowed her father to lead her to a place. She saw many people. She also saw her father's cold smile. Send them to where they should go. It was a kind of hatred. A hatred that couldn't be erased. It was also at that time that little Tiger Bo understood a principle. At the same time, she hated this kind of person the most. Don't always stand on the moral high ground and ask people to forgive you. If you weren't the person in question and didn't understand what the person in question had gone through, then shut up. When did the person who broke a bad person's family and stole other people's things become reasonable? She would never forgive the person who took her things. Some people harmed others to pretend to be pitiful or to criticize others. Did you think they would feel that they were in the wrong? No. They were just afraid that their image would be damaged. Or, they would show a smug expression and talk about what they had done. The heavenly axiom should be a cycle of retribution. The heavenly axiom wouldn't carry out this retribution on her behalf. Chapter 1449. At that time, Chin Mo, who was sitting at the dining table, didn't know what his little tiger was going through. But when he looked up at the clock on the wall for the third time, he didn't touch the pork and century egg porridge in front of him. The young golden-haired butler was anxious. After all, Chairman An had asked him to take good care of his young master these 2 days. Besides the chef, he was the only one here. How could his young master not eat? The golden-haired butler probably knew why his young master didn't have a good appetite. He suggested in English, "Why don't we go to Miss Jo's house? After all, Mr. Bo doesn't have the habit of cooking breakfast." Chin Mo tilted his head and glanced at the golden-haired butler, his voice faint. "Do those things have anything to do with me?" The golden-haired butler choked and didn't know what to say. He thought this was the end of this matter. After a while, Chin Mo stood up. On the other side, Chin Mo stood up, seeming a little indifferent. "Bring the snacks I brought from China and today's century egg and lean meat congee over." The young butler wanted to say, "Didn't you say that those things had nothing to do with you? In the end, you still asked me to send the food." Chin Mo thought about it. No matter how naughty the little tiger was, he couldn't let her starve. That was how raising a child was. He sent the butler to send the food while he sat in the living room. He took a book but couldn't read it. When the butler came back, Chin Mo looked up. What did she say? The young golden-haired butler exclaimed and placed the things in his hands in front of him. Chin Mo's gaze landed on it. It was the things he had given him previously, untouched. His brows slowly furrowed. The butler watched as his young master's handsome face turned colder and colder. He hurriedly said, "It's not that Miss Jo didn't accept it, there's no one in the Bow family." "No one? So early?" Chin Mo replied, "Got it." His gaze landed on those things again. Even the boxed pastries had a shelf life. He had specially found a chef to make the pastries. Plus the time it took to fly over. Chin Mo lowered his gaze. There were 2 more days. Forget it, he would send it over at night. Even so. On this day, Chin Mo didn't do anything. He looked like he was reading a book. An entire day had passed but he didn't even flip that page. Not to mention eating. The blonde butler looked at the unmoving steak on the table anxiously. However, there was still no one from the Yin clan. It was finally dusk. Only then did their young master seem to have a soul. He stood up from the sofa and wrapped those things up again. "Go and deliver it again." "Yes," the golden-haired butler answered readily. In less than 2 minutes, he was back. Chin Mo looked at the things in his hands, his eyes dimming. Still no one. Mr. Bo came back a little late today. He must have taken Miss Jo out to play. I'll send him back at 10 p.m. The young butler was still too naive. Chin Mo nodded and sat in front of the dining table. Just as he was about to pick up the napkin, he suddenly remembered something and put it down. He hadn't seen the little tiger for 24 hours. If she followed Uncle Bo, what would he bring her to eat? As long as it wasn't junk food, it was fine. After eating it the last time, her stomach had been bulging. He had to rub it for a long time before she stopped feeling uncomfortable and knew to sleep well. In that instant, Chin Mo thought of many things. Maybe a little later. Chapter 1450. The clock in the living room swung from 6 to 10. The fog outside was so thick that he couldn't see the figure walking towards him. Night had already filled the sky. This was the 3rd time the young butler shook his head at Chin Mo. "There's still no one." Chin Mo didn't speak. But the butler could see that his young master's disappointment was too obvious this time. If Chin Mo couldn't sleep yesterday, he couldn't sleep. But today, the feeling was even deeper. At 2 in the morning, he didn't tell anyone. He got up, put on his long black down jacket and walked in the direction of the Bo family's house. His back was small but it was tall and straight. He pressed the doorbell but there was still no one. Did she not come back today? Chin Mo thought. He reached out and started to climb the wall again. He had learned all her bad habits. Chin Mo stood on the balcony and looked into the house through the floor-to-ceiling window. It didn't look like anyone was there. He reached out and pushed but it didn't open. There was one thing he couldn't compare to a certain little tiger. No matter what kind of lock it was, it could be opened with her hands. He didn't get anything. Chin Mo could only go back the way he came. He hadn't seen that person for 32 hours. Even if he wasn't willing to admit it. He flew all the way from the country just so that he could see a certain little tiger earlier. Chin Mo lowered his eyes, telling himself to wait a little longer. He was the one raising the child. She wasn't the one raising him. When she came back tomorrow, he would come to the Bo family's house to make up with her. After all, according to a certain person's level of stupidity, she might not understand why he was angry. This was Chin Mo's thought that night. The next day, early in the morning, he asked someone to make a basket of soup dumplings and prepared to bring the things over. Seeing his young master like this, the young butler couldn't bear to say that there was no one at the Bo family's house. He watched as the smile on that handsome little face gradually disappeared. His young master stood in front of the Bo family's house, carrying things in his hands. The way he pressed the corners of his mouth made people think of the word lonely. Fortunately, his young master didn't stand there for long. Instead, he turned around and walked in another direction. The young butler was shocked by this sudden change and hurriedly followed. "Young master, where are you going?" His young master's route was very clear every day. One was to her house and the other was to the Bow family. Usually, he would take Miss Jo for a walk after dinner. He had never been to any other place. What was going on this time? Chin Mo didn't speak. He was wearing a black coat, giving off the vibe of a little prince. The butler looked at the little, cold figure and did not dare to ask a second time. Wait a minute. Wasn't this young Master William's house? Just as this thought rose in the butler's mind, Chin Mo had already reached out to press the doorbell. This morning, the big William was still hugging the Spider-Man pillow and fantasizing that he was saving the world. In short, he slept like a log. After all, it was still early, and the alarm clock had not yet rung. What he didn't expect was that he would be dragged out of bed. Who was it? Who was so uncultured as to disturb his dreams? After William opened his eyes, he wanted to express his dissatisfaction in an imposing manner. But when he saw a certain handsome and exquisite little face in front of him, he immediately withered. Chapter 1451. William swallowed and tried hard to maintain his dignity. Why did you come to my house? Chin Mo glanced at him and then threw him aside. Little William didn't understand why the other party wasn't speaking. His grandfather walked in and smiled at the two of them. William has never woken up early. Chin, you are indeed amazing. Little William watched as the little vixen nodded politely. He was extremely humble. Where was the force he had used to drag him down by the collar just now? This little vixen from the east only knew how to act. Little William was so angry that he didn't know what to say. He could only grab his hair and stand up. Once his grandfather left, the little vixen revealed his true colors. Not only was his voice low, but his little face was also cold as though someone owed him money. Where is Joe? Why are you asking me this question? Little William felt wronged. Ever since you came, Joe stopped playing with me. Although she didn't play with me much in the past, don't you know the methods you used? Chin Mo looked at him and said faintly, stopping Joe from playing with you is considered a method? Little William. Don't you find it shameless to say it so openly? I'll ask you again, where is Joe? Chin Mo repeated. The murderous aura made the big William grab his red hair. Boss Chin, I really don't know. Chin Mo started to look at that face. He seemed to have thought of something. Why did Uncle Bo let Joe sleep at your house? There were many surveillance cameras outside the Bo family's house. There were also some devices that the little tiger had shown him previously. It was very safe. William grabbed his hair again. Boss Chin, can you let me wear a pair of pants first when you ask me questions? Chin Mo raised his eyebrows. William shrugged. His nose was still red. All right, I won't wear it. The question is more important. But why do you keep asking me things that even I don't know the reason for? Uncle Bo told my dad that he was busy recently and couldn't take care of Joe. He asked my dad to take care of her. It would be best if he could bring Joe to the filming set often and not always stay in the same place. But now that you mention it, I find it strange too. Uncle Bo has been busy in the past but he has never done such things. When Chin Mo heard this, his hands suddenly slid down. He had a bad feeling about this. That kind of premonition was innate. It's a little strong. There was also an indescribable emptiness. He didn't stay at William's house any longer. He knew that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of them even if he kept asking. On the other hand, little William was confused. What's going on? Why does this little monster look so distracted? The young butler was downstairs and didn't know what was going on. However, as he watched his young master walk down, he felt as if his entire being had been sucked out, and even his little face was a little dazed. Blank? He was not sure if he had used the wrong adjective. Two people returned to settle down. Chin Mo looked at the pile of New Year goods. He is waiting. Wait for that person to come back. He wasn't home yesterday. He would be able to stay at home tonight. There was no need to think so much. The Bo family was here. He's here too. Where else could the little tiger go other than here? He had to wait patiently. Otherwise, if the little tiger couldn't find him when she came back, she would definitely droop her pair of tiger ears and not speak. Chin Mo told himself not to be too impatient and not to think too much. Everything would become better. Chapter 1452. However. No. That night. The lights in the Bo house were still dark. Chin Mo took a box of pastries that had expired and placed it aside. The young blonde butler stood beside him. He had been looking for someone, so he didn't even take the newspaper from the mailbox. The atmosphere in the in-house had never been so low. Their young master hadn't eaten for 2 days. The young blonde butler couldn't wait any longer. He called Chairmanen. When Chairmanen heard the news, he put down his work and planned to rush over. But there was a large meeting on hand that he couldn't push off. Hence, 5 days later, Chairmanen flew over. During this period, he had a video call with his grandson. He also understood that if he didn't fly over, something might really happen. Chin Mo was still the same. Nothing could be seen on the surface. Rather than saying that he couldn't see anything, it would be better to say that there was something he didn't want to admit. He had clearly sensed something, but he didn't want to admit it. Children were all like this. They hoped to grab onto a certain hope. In the past, old Masterin thought that his grandson wouldn't be like this. But when he saw his grandson in front of him, he realized. In front of the person he liked, he was no different from an ordinary child. 5 days passed. The New Year goods that Chin Mo brought back for a certain little tiger couldn't be eaten anymore. He still remembered when he was about to return to China. The little tiger had curled herself into a ball and laid in his luggage. She had opened her eyes wide and asked him if he could check her back. Why didn't he fight for it back then? When Chin Mo asked himself, his lips were a little pale. After Grandpa saw his grandson, he asked the kitchen to prepare dinner before he sighed deeply. I will try to contact your Uncle Bo. His grandfather's return gave Chin Mo some hope. He had been waiting for this day. When old Masterin called, he couldn't get through. He could only spend money to investigate, but they didn't find anything. The only result was that, unbeknownst to him, the villa next to him had transferred the account to him. When he found out about this, old Masterin roughly understood what was going on. The Bo family had left. Something big must have happened. Even old Masterin, who had a friendship with Mr. Bo, didn't have the address of the castle. Hence, he couldn't find the Bo family. How to explain it to his grandson was a problem. Old Masterin had never thought that this would be the end of the story. Ever since his grandson met Joe, he had changed a lot. Perhaps he had changed too much. So much so that when he picked up the game controller to play games instead of reading, he was stunned. Old Masterin froze for a moment. Because his grandson's back was facing him, the little figure sat on the ground and put down the game controller in his hand. His voice was still indifferent. Grandfather, I was wrong. I shouldn't be so proud. I know that she only knows how to play with her little keyboard, play games, and write programs. She doesn't know the ways of the world, but I'm still waiting for her to apologize to me. Grandpa, tell Uncle Bo that I know I was wrong. Ask him to return the little tiger. I will take good care of her this time. Even if she is naughty and wants to play with little William next door, I won't care about her. At most, I will break little William's legs. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.